Hello and welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Explore our playlist for more captivating novels, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new audiobook. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1 Descendants of the Devil. Damn it, in this world, the rich get rich to death, and the poor can starve to death. Under the neon lights, a thin man stood at the door of the bar, looking at the men and women dancing inside with envy and jealousy in his eyes. Hey! The man sighed softly, withdrew his gaze, and staggered into a dark alley. Bang! What? However, it wasn't long before a scream was heard in the alley, followed by the voices of two men. Brother won't die. How should I know? This bastard didn't pay back the money he owed, so he deserved to die. Brother, I think it's better to call the police. Hey Nima, there's no surveillance here, hurry up and leave. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sound of hurried running, and the dark alley returned to silence again. In the year 1485 of the Haiyuan calendar, only 1 year had passed since the end of the Battle of God Valley. The remaining crew members began to gradually develop their power. Whitebeard was busy recruiting a son, Golden Lion was busy recruiting people to subvert the world, and Charlotte Linlin was busy looking for excellent genes, giving birth to children, making the family business bigger and stronger, and establishing a family business. The Grand Route, a country where war never ends. A sturdy man in military uniform sat among a pile of corpses, confusion in his eyes. Douglas Barrett. The sturdy man whispered, with helplessness and unnaturalness in his eyes. The strong man of the past is dead. To be more precise, his soul was devoured by an outsider and he was usurped by the outsider. The outsider was named LV Zhang and he was from Blue Star. He was a frustrated middle-aged man who had lost everything he had. He thought that he would live a mediocre life, but he didn't expect that such an outrageous thing as time travel would happen to him, and he traveled to One Piece, one of the 3 most popular anime in his previous life. Moreover, by devouring the original owner, he discovered that the one he had taken over was a famous pirate, the descendant of the devil, Douglas Barrett. Although Barrett's strength is considered to be at the ceiling level of One Piece, his fate is rough. Not only was he abandoned since childhood, but he was also thrown into the army at the age of 5 to engage in endless battles. Fortunately, Barrett was gifted and born for war. He had made many contributions since joining the army. After being awarded medals, he was called a national hero. But at the same time, Barrett's talent aroused the fear and jealousy of some people. This attack was a plot. In the case of food shortage, the 9th Squad of the Boy Scout Bullet Squad led by Barrett was ambushed by the enemy and the whole team was wiped out. If it were not for the critical moment, Barrett awakened his conqueror's haki, knocked everyone unconscious, and he himself was too weak to pass out, so he escaped. Coincidentally, Lu Zhang traveled through time at this time, devoured Barrett's weak and young soul, occupied Barrett's body, and inherited everything from Barrett. I have taken over your body and inherited everything from you. From today on, I am Barrett, and I will make this name resound throughout the world. There was a complex flash in Barrett's eyes. In his previous life, he was plotted against because of power and money issues and lived in a muddle. He never expected that God would give him a chance to live again. After being reborn, he naturally didn't want to live a cowardly life anymore and wanted to live a wonderful life. Moreover, through the fusion of memories, he knew the current timeline. Barrett had just turned 9 years old and had not yet eaten the devil fruit that was linked to his destiny. Barrett stood up with a frown. His body was very strong. At the age of 9, his body was comparable to that of Dwayne Johnson on TV in his previous life. He was full of lumps of flesh and was about 2 meters tall. If it weren't for his somewhat childish appearance, it would be hard to imagine that he was a 9-year-old child. But now he was obviously a little weak and his legs were a little weak. We have to find something to eat first. Barrett frowned. He learned from his memory that he had not eaten for 7 days and only had less than half of his strength left. Barrett staggered forward in the blood, turning over corpses one after another. In the endless country, no matter which country it is, food is the most important strategic resource and is regarded as lifeline by everyone. Therefore, some soldiers would bring dry food with them when they went to the battlefield. Soon, after turning over dozens of corpses, Barrett finally found the first food, a few red-dyed pancakes in a pot of water. Then, without caring whether it was dirty or not, he just sat on the ground and started gobbling it up in big mouthfuls. Call. Alive. Barrett breathed a sigh of relief, and his strength slowly recovered a little. After resting for a while, he began to search the corpse again, ready to leave. After all, in this world where strength is the bottom line, he still seemed very weak. Besides, he inherited Barrett's body, so he naturally wouldn't follow the original Barrett's old path. In the original work, although Barrett was strong, his life was extremely bumpy. Except for a few good years on Roger's ship, he just recklessly lived the rest of the time. In the end, he spent more than 10 years in prison. After he came out, he was killed by the script. It was nothing more than a tragedy. As for the endless country, what does it have to do with him? Barrett collected some food, picked up 2 long knives, and staggered into the woods. Barrett ate the collected food as he walked. With his powerful digestive system, his strength slowly recovered. By the time he finished eating all the food, his strength had finally recovered by 30%. Not long after, he walked into a forest and found a hidden cave. He moved a stone to block the entrance of the cave, leaned against the rock wall and quickly fell asleep. After all, whether it was the domineering color burst, the soul fusion, or the long-term fighting and hunger, they all made him feel extremely tired. Rustle. An unknown amount of time had passed before the bright moonlight shone on the forest. A chaotic sound of footsteps was heard outside the cave. Barrett woke up from his coma with alertness. He grasped the long knife at his side with his big hand and looked outside through the gap. Some people in military uniforms were walking around in the woods outside, seemingly looking for something. Through his memory, Barrett easily recognized the soldiers of the country he served, as well as some from the Boy Scouts, who were obviously looking for him. No matter what, Barrett was also a hero of this country. Whether he was dead or alive, there had to be an explanation, which would also give some people peace of mind. Damn, the ghost is still here. Barrett cursed softly, with a cold light in his eyes. He slowly retreated into the cave with a long knife in hand until he was completely hidden in the darkness. Not long after, a 2-man team of Boy Scouts found the entrance to the cave, and at the same time a voice was heard. Alec, there is a sealed cave here, and there seem to be signs that someone has been here. Do you think it could be that pervert? It's possible, another voice responded. Barrett heard the conversation, tensed his body, tightly gripped the long knife in his hand, and slowly lowered his breathing. Then should we go in and take a look? The voice that had sounded before rang out, with a hint of excitement and eagerness in its tone. Barrett's eyes flashed with cold light. After the fusion of souls, he has adapted to this world. This place is not like the anime where you can't be killed no matter how hard you fight. This world respects strength and the rules are made by the strong. In the Endless Kingdom, blood, betrayal and killing are the only theme songs. If anyone outside dares to explore the cave, he will show no mercy. Influenced by the fusion of souls, he now has the same decisive and murderous character as Barrett, and is no longer the down-and-out loser he was in his previous life. Fool Tylo, wouldn't it be better if we can't find that guy? That way there will be one less person competing with us for the credit, and we can be awarded medals and become heroes soon. After a while, the voice that was previously called Alex sounded again. Hee hee. T. Luo responded with a grin, that's right. That guy is a pervert. It would be best if he died. Without that guy stealing the credit, we can be awarded medals quickly and get more food. Hee hee. Alex laughed grimly, that's right, let that guy die, we'll go back and say we didn't find him. Then let's go. Let's go. With that, the two of them left with smiles on their faces. After about an hour, there was no sound outside at all. Barrett held the long knife and gently moved forward a few steps. He looked outside the cave through the gap. Seeing that there was no sign of the scout outside, he relaxed his tense body and sat down against the rock wall. I need to get out of here as soon as possible. Barrett said to himself. His brows were tightly furrowed on his still childish face. From his memory, he knew that the forest where he was now was also a battlefield, but now was the time to pay the heavenly gold. Large-scale wars would not break out, but there would be a lot of small-scale battles. He would be discovered here sooner or later. Once discovered, he would either be killed or pick up the knife and join the army again. Moreover, the most crucial thing is that these forests have been severely damaged due to years of fighting. There is not even a trace of animals in the forests, so food is a big problem. Crunchy. Barrett stood up, slowly moved the stone blocking the cave, held a long knife, looked around vigilantly, and walked cautiously into the depths of the forest. He had fought in this battlefield for many years and was familiar with the geographical location. He remembered that there was a cliff at the edge of the forest, about 50 meters high, and below the cliff was the ocean. Few people went to that place, and leaving from there was the safest place. With the help of moonlight, Barrett moved forward cautiously. Soon he came to the edge of the cliff and climbed down. Looking at the rough sea, Barrett couldn't help but feel a sense of pride rising in his heart, a will that he could no longer suppress, and invisible energy surged out of his body. Boom! The clouds in the sky were instantly split in half by this overbearing will. I am coming. Looking at his masterpiece, Barrett had a smile on his face and looking at the sea, his eyes were shining. Chapter 2 Leaving. After a moment, Barrett retracted his gaze, walked slowly under the rock wall, and looked around. He planned to find a place to stay first, and then go out to sea after fully recovering here. After all, he was still very weak, and going out to sea now would be tantamount to seeking death. Moreover, he could also take advantage of the recovery time to cut down trees and build a raft to increase his own safety. Soon, Barrett came to a naturally formed cave. The cave was not big nor deep. There were trees blocking the left side of the cave. From a distance, it was difficult to spot anyone there, which was just right for him to hide and recuperate. Ka ka ka. Barrett swung the steel knife in his hand continuously, chopped down several large trees, dragged them to the other side of the cave and stood them up to hide from others. After finishing everything, Barrett felt very tired and felt hungry. Cuckoo. Barrett had to drag his tired body towards the sea because of his unfulfilled stomach. He needed to replenish the deficiency in his body and he needed food. This was also the reason why he chose this place. After all, living by the sea, he would never lack food. Soon, Barrett found a pond with a low water level. With a splash, he jumped in without any hesitation. He was quickly submerged. After a while, the water changed color to dark red, which was the blood stains on Barrett's body. Wow! A few waves surged on the calm water surface, and Barrett jumped out of the water and landed on the ground, holding a dying big fish in his hand. Nice catch. Barrett carried the fish back to his destination with a smile on his face, then put away the knife, opened the fish belly, and after cleaning it, cut the fish into pieces with a knife, then picked up a piece of fish at random and put it into his mouth. It tastes good. Barrett swallowed the fish with a hint of surprise on his face. He thought that it would have a fishy smell if eaten raw, but he didn't expect that the fish not only did not have a fishy smell, but also had a fresh fragrance and was very delicious. The delicious stimulation made the hungry Barrett unable to stop at all. He swallowed the fish in big mouthfuls. After a few minutes, dozens of kilograms of fish were all eaten, and Barrett's hunger was slightly relieved. But it was obvious that the fish was not enough, so he went back to the pond to catch some more. Not long after, Barrett caught a few more fish. He felt satisfied after eating them all, and then fell into a deep sleep in the cave. For 7 consecutive days, Barrett stayed out at night and hid during the day, and through eating large amounts of meat, his body recovered to its best condition. Only after his body fully recovered did he realize how strong this body was. No, perhaps the word strong was not appropriate to describe him at all. The word monster would be more appropriate. After all, a 9-year-old kid could break a rock with one punch, which was simply impossible in his previous life, and he was holding back when he punched. He estimated that if he used all his strength, the force of one punch could reach about 2 tons, which means that if Barrett was in his previous life, he would be a Superman. As for the weightlifting champion or boxing champion, they can be killed with one punch, and this is just Barrett's current strength. I don't know how strong I will be after training. Although he did not get the rumored benefits and golden fingers, Barrett's body itself is equivalent to a plug-in. Moreover, after the fusion of the souls of his original body and his previous life, the strength of his own soul was greatly enhanced. In just 7 days, he was able to control the domineering hockey with ease. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Under the quiet moonlight, Barrett, carrying a long knife on his back, picked up the raft that he had worked overtime for 7 days and ran quickly towards the sea. Bang! Barrett threw the raft into the sea with force, jumped with a makeshift paddle, jumped into the sea with a splash, then swam quickly to the raft, climbed onto it, picked up the paddle and paddled quickly. Under the moonlight, Barrett stood on the bamboo raft, looking at the gradually blurred coastline with an indescribable look in his eyes. Dash 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 dash. Time passed, and 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. Barrett still hadn't found an island to stay on, and he was on the verge of collapse. Mad, when will this end? Barrett lay on the raft with a look of despair on his face. 3 days of aimless sailing made him realize that drifting on the sea without any navigation knowledge and a sturdy ship was simply seeking death. Thump. At this moment, a slight collision sound caught Barrett's attention. What? Barrett turned his head and saw a square box floating on the sea, leaning against the raft. Barrett quickly stood up, scooped up the box and examined it carefully. The box is half a meter in size and is very exquisite. It is made of red unknown wood. There are some golden patterns inlaid on the box. The carvings are very gorgeous. It looks very precious and extraordinary. What is this? Barrett looked puzzled, then put the box on the raft, stepped back a few steps, gently opened the box with a knife, and when he saw that there was nothing wrong, he slowly walked closer to look at the box. 2 strange fruits with spiral patterns were quietly placed inside. One of the fruits with spiral patterns was golden yellow, somewhat like an apple, and the other was bright red, somewhat like a banana, with strange patterns on them. A blessing in disguise. I didn't expect to encounter a devil fruit here. Barrett murmured with a complicated expression. During the few days he spent under the rock wall, he went out of his way to look for Barrett's fruit of destiny, the fusion fruit, but unfortunately, it seemed to be related to his time travel, and he was no longer destined to have the fruit of destiny. This made him feel a little regretful. After all, the fruit was very powerful and could merge with any object. Whether it was defense or attack, it would be incredibly strong. And after the fruit awakened, it was even more amazing. Destroying an island with one blow was no problem at all. And with his modern imagination, after development, he would only be stronger than Barrett in the original work, and definitely not weaker than him. Will there be a fusion fruit? Barrett said to himself, reaching out to take out the devil fruit from the box and examining it carefully. The stripes on the golden devil fruit are complex, like scattered golden lines, while the stripes on the scarlet devil fruit are like feathers. He has watched the anime One Piece. Animal-type characters mostly look like bananas, nature-type characters look at colors and patterns, and superhuman-type characters are all kinds of strange and bizarre, and the difficulty coefficient of development is much greater than the other 2 types. However, if developed well, the effect can be extremely amazing, just like Whitebeard, Golden Lion, and Doflamingo, who achieved success while achieving the devil fruit at the same time. But at the same time, he was also afraid of encountering some bad devil fruits, like Trebol, who had snot all day long. If he ate that kind of fruit, he would be so disgusting. Thinking of this, Barrett shuddered involuntarily, and his hand holding the devil fruit was shaking a little. Probably not. Barrett comforted himself. After all, fans speculated that the superhuman fruits were in the shape of cantaloupe, and these 2 were obviously not. So he put the 2 fruits into a box, then took off his clothes, wrapped the box and tied it tightly to himself. Now he was on the sea, and he didn't dare to eat it. After all, people with special abilities were afraid of the sea. It was clearly stated in the original work. In this case, eating a devil fruit, except for a fruit that could fly, any other ability would be simply seeking death. After putting away the devil fruit, Barrett regained some strength, picked up the oars and paddled quickly. The raft no longer drifted with the current, but rushed across the sea, leaving a trail of water. As night falls, the moon hangs high in the sky, and the starry sky is reflected in the water, creating a beautiful spectacle under the sparkling waves. Boom. However, the good times did not last long. A thunderbolt flashed across the sky, and a flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating the entire sea. Dong dong. Fist-sized hailstones fell on the sea, making a bang bang sound. Damn, here it comes again. Barrett complained and quickly jumped into the sea to avoid being killed by the hail. After all, he was not able to withstand such dense hail yet. This was also what he gained from the 3 days of sailing. When he watched anime before, although it was mentioned that the weather on the Grand Line was terrible, he didn't expect it to be so terrible. He experienced spring, summer, autumn and winter during the 3 days of sailing. He jumped into the sea to reduce the impact of the falling hail, and the force of being hit would be much smaller. Fortunately, hail always comes and goes quickly. After a few minutes, the hail disappeared. Barrett quickly climbed onto the raft, tied a log of the raft together with vines, and then held the raft tightly. According to his experience, there was a violent storm below. Call. Sure enough, a strong wind blew, creating a huge wave. The raft was lifted to the crest of the wave and pushed forward, giving a feeling of modern surfing. Barrett held onto the raft tightly, trying his best to prevent it from falling apart. After all, it was his only means of navigation. Call. Suddenly, the wind increased, like an 18-level typhoon, and the waves were blown up hundreds of meters, as if the sea god was angry, and the huge waves turned into a tsunami. Fuck, do you have to be so exaggerated? As the wind grew stronger, the raft was instantly blown away. Barrett was in tears and could only hold on to a log tightly, leaving the rest to fate. Boom. Accompanied by the roar of huge waves, the waves instantly submerged Barrett. The violent impact directly knocked Barrett away, and Barrett fainted. Fortunately, the log he was tied to did not fall off. Chapter 3 Desert Island. Cough cough. After an unknown amount of time, Barrett woke up slowly, looked around, and found himself on the shore of an unfamiliar island. Fortunately, apart from 2 broken ribs, he was fine. Caca. Barrett endured the pain and used the crude skills he had learned in the Kingdom of Endless War to roughly fix the bone. Then he lay powerlessly on the beach, gasping for breath. After about half an hour, Barrett's strong body took effect and the pain in the broken bone slowly disappeared. Fortunately, the things are still there. Barrett touched the box tied to his body and felt relieved. After all, even if he didn't eat the devil fruit, it would be extremely rare to use it to build up power in the future. What's more, on this island, these 2 devil fruits might be his life-saving straw. After resting for a while, Barrett stood up and looked around, ready to seek help from his kind. But soon he made the tragic discovery that there was no one on the beach except for a long knife he had left behind. Do you have to be so deceiving? Barrett picked up the long knife with a wry smile and slowly walked towards the island, hoping that there were other people of the same kind living on the island. Roar. Just as Barrett reached the edge of the forest, a huge roar was heard. Barrett's heart trembled, and he quickly hid behind a huge tree, watching carefully. Roar. Then, there was another huge roar, and a giant figure over 30 meters tall appeared in front of Barrett, with a dragon head, a lizard body, and powerful claws. It was the fictional creature Tyrannosaurus Rex from the movie in his previous life. At this moment, the Tyrannosaurus Rex was releasing its aura wantonly with a step that showed no regard for its relatives, demonstrating its dominant position. Gu dong. Barrett's throat rolled and his back felt a little cold. Although he knew that sooner or later he would encounter the strange creatures of this world, he was still extremely shocked when he actually saw them. After all, in his previous life, apart from seeing them on TV, the only things he could see were fossils in museums. Moreover, the fossils in the museum were only a few meters tall. Compared with what he saw before him, they were nothing. They were not on the same level at all. The Tyrannosaurus Rex came and went quickly, and soon disappeared from the area where Barrett was. Seeing the giant Tyrannosaurus Rex, Barrett didn't dare to go into the jungle again, so he retreated cautiously until he reached the edge of the beach, then sat down on the ground, gasping for breath. He was too shocked by what he had just experienced. But Barrett soon calmed down. He was not the original modern man, and the world he lived in was not the original world. After devouring the remaining soul of the original Barrett, he was also affected to a certain extent and accepted all these quickly. I want to become stronger. Barrett gritted his teeth and suppressed the fear in his heart. Then, Barrett took a step and slowly explored the island. This is a deserted island. There are countless such deserted islands in the pirate world, and Barrett doesn't know where he is. But this island is very unusual. All kinds of animals are huge, including 3-meter-tall rabbits, 7 or 8-meter-long tigers, and various giant monsters. Their strength is extremely unusual and powerful. With Barrett's monstrous physique, it would be very difficult for him to fight against a rabbit, let alone other huge monsters. However, this is also like a testing ground that can allow Barrett to grow faster. Because just now, Barrett got an advantage. A giant bear and a tiger were fighting, and a rabbit, who knew whether it was kicked in the head, rushed into the battle circle recklessly. As a result, the bear and the tiger joined forces, and the bear and the tiger each gave a claw, and the rabbit was directly knocked dozens of meters away and died. Coincidentally, the rabbit fell next to Barrett after crashing into several large trees. Barrett didn't care and started running, dragging the rabbit weighing several hundred kilograms, straight back to the beach, where he skinned and cleaned the rabbit, then built a fire by the sea and started roasting it. After eating a few pieces of meat, Barrett discovered an incredible thing, that is, the animals on this island are extremely beneficial to the body. After eating the rabbit meat, he obviously felt the recovery of his body strength. Even the broken bones slowly began to heal under the energy of the rabbit meat, and the pain was greatly reduced. Feeling the effect, Barrett felt a surge of excitement in his heart and started exercising spontaneously. His training method is also very simple, which is regular exercises such as push-ups, frog jumps, sit-ups, etc. The purpose is to strengthen his body. As a fan of One Piece, I naturally know that in the world of pirates, no matter it is the ability of devil fruits or superb combat skills, they are inseparable from one's own physique. It's a hot summer day and the heat is raging. Huff, huff. Barrett, shirtless and carrying a huge rock on his back, was sweating on the beach and doing powerful push-ups. 5,000. 7,000. Bang. After a long time, Barrett stood up, the boulder was lifted up and fell heavily to the ground, and hot sweat kept dripping onto the ground along his strong body. Call. After a while, Barrett let out a long sigh, picked up the wooden halberd placed beside him, and strode into the sea. Bang bang. In an instant, waves surged from the calm sea surface. Since arriving on this deserted island, Barrett's daily life has been filled with training and fighting. Although he was just an ordinary person in his previous life, his family was not ordinary. His ancestors had great figures, such as Lu Fengxian, who was known as the red hare among horses and Lu Biyu among men. Although some of Lu Bu's heritage was lost over a long period of time, many of his martial arts were still passed down, including the halberd technique that made Lu Biyu famous, the 36-way army breaking halberd. However, in previous lives, cold weapons had long been eliminated and were no longer used for force. But in order to prevent the loss of family heritage, his father forced him to practice the family's inherited martial arts since he was a child. However, as he grew older, various pressures from study and life came pouring in, and he gave up learning martial arts in high school. His strong physique slowly deteriorated under various pressures, and he became a down-and-out middle-aged man. The only thing left was the memory of his training engraved deep in his mind. Now that we have come to this world, a world known for its military strength, the family heritage naturally has its place. After a month, thanks to his strong body and the special characteristics of the animals on the island, after a month of training, his height increased by more than 10 centimeters, his physical strength doubled, and he also picked up his family martial arts, and his halberd skills were impenetrable. Moreover, with the special blessing of this world, his halberd skills have broken through the limits of Blue Star. When he swings the halberd, he can create waves of powerful energy. The only regret was that he lacked a good halberd and had to make one from wood instead. After a month, I don't know how many times it broke. Click. As Barrett's movements became faster and faster, the wooden halberd could no longer bear the weight and broke again. The broken halberd head was thrown dozens of meters away, causing a wave several meters high. Hey! Barrett stopped what he was doing, looked at the broken halberd in his hand, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Forget it, let's go get some food first, and I'll get another one later. Afterwards, Barrett casually dropped the broken wooden halberd in his hand, went ashore, picked up the long sword on the ground, and strode into the forest. This was also one of his trainings, one for actual combat, and the other for food. Barrett walked into the forest and carefully searched for the rabbit. After all, with his current strength, he was no match for anyone on the island except the rabbit. Barrett looked around and listened carefully, but after searching for a long time, he didn't find a rabbit. It looks like we won't be able to hunt rabbits today. Barrett felt a little lost for not finding the rabbit, but he didn't dare go deep into the forest. He could only wander around the periphery and then slowly retreat from the forest with his long knife. Rustle. But just as he walked out of the forest, a rustling sound was heard, and a black python more than 10 meters long and as thick as a bucket coiled up, propping up its body, and staring at Barrett with a pair of brown vertical pupils. Damn, this is such a lucky swoop. Barrett cursed inwardly, holding the long knife vigilantly, staring at the giant python. He didn't believe that the animals in this world had the same habits as the animals on the original Earth. What snakes do attack immobile creatures? Although the animals in this world are not as smart as humans, their IQ is not low, and they all rely on scent to sense things. Hiss. The black python was spitting out its tongue and shaking its head, as if trying to figure out how to attack Barrett and kill him with one blow. Barrett was also very vigilant. He didn't think the python would let him go. Hiss. Sure enough, the giant python shook its head, opened its big mouth, and bit Barrett fiercely with very fast movements. Bang! Barrett, who was always keeping an eye on the giant python, made a choice the moment the python attacked. He kicked his foot, broke a stone, dodged, and chopped the snake's head with his long knife. Ding! Barrett's long sword hit the snake's neck heavily, sparks flew, and a gap was left on the long sword. Barrett was also thrown several meters away by the reaction force. Roar! The giant python howled in pain, twisting its body continuously, and swept its tail, creating a huge wave of wind and quickly swept towards Barrett. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 4 Giant Bear. No, it's too fast. Barrett had no way to dodge and could only take it. With a loud bang, Barrett was swept away more than 10 meters. Cough cough. Barrett held the knife, quickly climbed up, casually wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and stared at the giant python. The giant python's pupils were cold and it flickered its tongue, but it was not in a hurry to attack. Want to escape? Barrett looked at the giant python's cold vertical pupils, and some scenes from his past life reappeared in his mind, his tolerance for others, his servility to others. A sense of fear rose from the bottom of his heart again, urging him to leave. Call out. However, at this moment, the giant python attacked again, biting Barrett with its bloody mouth. At this moment, a domineering will emanated from Barrett, and a colorless torrent hit the giant python directly. More domineering and vast than before. The giant python's body froze, a trace of fear flashed in its eyes, and it even forgot to close its open mouth. I have lived my life over again. My life has just begun. How can I fall down here? In this life, no one can control my life. Barrett's eyes were cold, with a dangerous red light flashing in them. There was no trace of cowardice in them anymore. He exerted force with his feet, leaving a residual shadow and entering through the snake's mouth. The giant python's fangs were directly broken. The severe pain woke the python up, and it let out a painful roar and rolled on the ground. But soon, the giant python's struggles became weaker and weaker, and countless blood overflowed from its body, dyeing the earth red in an instant. Whoosh! A few minutes later, Barrett crawled out of the snake's mouth, panting. He was covered in blood, his face was pale and he looked a little weak. But there was a smile on his blood-stained face, a confident smile, and his temperament was completely different from before. It turns out that only by defeating yourself can you advance bravely and break your own limits. Between life and death, there is great terror, but it is also an opportunity. The corners of Barrett's mouth curled up, and a strange color flashed in his eyes, because just now, when Barrett overcame his fear, his domineering color became even stronger and his body was greatly improved. Call. Barrett heaved a long sigh, dragged the snake corpse with one hand, and strode towards the sea. He had been very exhausted just now, and breaking the limit almost used up all his strength. Time passed, and a year went by in a flash. On the beach of an unknown island, in the hazy moonlight, Barrett, who was lying on the beach, suddenly opened his eyes and stood up. Compared to the original, Barrett is not as burly, but his body is more well proportioned. Now he is nearly 3 meters tall, with countless scars all over his naked upper body, and his long flowing golden hair fluttering in the wind. He looks flamboyant, unruly, resolute and free and easy. It's hunting time. Barrett whispered. His figure turned into a shadow and disappeared on the beach in an instant. This was one of his achievements over the past year. It was a movement technique he had developed by combining his memories from his previous life with some martial arts concepts inherited from his family. It was similar to the shaving technique used in the Navy. Shaving is one of the 6 styles of the Navy. This move is mainly reflected in high-speed movement. The principle is to step on the ground dozens of times in a row within 0.36 seconds to produce an explosive reaction force. The movement speed has reached a level that is invisible to the naked eye. After all, his family inheritance only taught him boxing and weapon training, but not any fast-moving footwork. In order to avoid any shortcomings in the future, he suffered a lot this year and his legs were almost broken. Fortunately, hard work pays off, and after some practice, he finally succeeded. Moreover, after a year of hard training, Barrett has reached a proficient level in the use of the shave. Although he may not be as good as the Navy or the elite of the world government, he can control the direction skillfully and will not accidentally hit a tree or something. Moreover, over the past year, his physical strength has increased several times again, and he has gradually mastered the ancestral halberd and boxing techniques. Compared to himself before going to the island, he can fight at least 5 people. However, this also pushed him to a limit, and there was a layer of protective film that invisibly blocked his progress. Barrett felt helpless about this and could only keep fighting with the beasts in the forest to hone his fighting skills and experience. There were several times when he almost died, but there are always great gains between life and death. After each near-death experience, his fighting skills would have a great breakthrough. He realized the skill of shaving at a critical moment in a battle with a giant bear. Bang! Barrett entered the woods and went straight to his old rival. Without saying a word, he punched the giant bear that was sleeping under the tree, and it was the giant bear that made him realize how to shave. Roar! Although the giant bear was more than 10 meters long, it was still knocked several meters away by a punch. It let out an angry roar, and its bare eyes glared at the little guy next to it, with a human-like helplessness and anger in its eyes. Come on, Big Bear, let's play some more. Barrett chuckled and hooked his finger at Big Bear, his eyes full of provocation. Roar! There was a hint of reluctance in the giant bear's eyes, but it still pounced on him resolutely, because it knew that if it didn't fight, the human in front of it would annoy it to death. Welcome. When Barrett saw the giant bear rushing towards him, excitement flashed in his eyes, and hot flames jumped in his eyes. A year of non-stop fighting gave him an inexplicable pleasure in fighting. Bang! When their fists collided, an invisible air wave emanated from between the man and the bear, blowing away the surrounding leaves and debris. A hint of solemnity flashed across the giant bear's eyes. It could clearly feel that Barrett's strength seemed to have increased again, from being vulnerable a year ago to being on par with him now. But when he saw Barrett's flaming eyes, he couldn't help but shudder, as if he recalled some bad memories. Ouch! Then, the giant bear rolled its eyes, held its paw and began to howl, looking at Barrett with complaints, as if blaming Barrett for using such heavy hands in the fight and showing no mercy to the bear at all. I day! Barrett was stunned. He didn't expect the giant bear to be so shameless. The burning glow in his eyes quickly dissipated and returned to normal. You lazy bastard, get up. I won't fight you today. Barrett scolded with a smile, walked over to sit next to the giant bear. After a year of fighting, Barrett and the giant bear have become friends and he is familiar with the giant bear's temperament. The giant bear is a typical homebody bear and will never sit if he can lie down. As long as there is no threat to it, it will ignore other animals even if they urinate next to it. Roar! Seeing Barrett sit down, the giant bear secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately stood up and dragged out a tiger that was deader than dead. The tiger was more than 10 meters long and very huge. Even in death, it still exuded the aura of a king. Big Bear, you killed him. Looking at the tiger, Barrett was surprised. He knew this tiger. It was the enemy of the giant bear and also his opponent. Barrett almost died in the tiger's mouth several times. Most of the scars on his body came from this tiger. Woohoo! The giant bear shook his head and pointed to the deepest part of the forest, with fear and terror in his eyes. Don't worry, Big Bear. I'll take you for a stroll inside one day. Barrett looked at the direction the giant bear pointed, with endless heat in his eyes. He knew that the giant bear was talking about the overlord of the forest. The island is huge and filled with giant creatures. There are also several overlords in the deepest part of the forest, including a giant elephant, a Tyrannosaurus rex, a giant King Kong, and a giant crocodile. And these are the news that Barrett exchanged his life for. 2 months ago, Barrett's strength reached its limit and he was very skilled in shaving. Then he became a little arrogant and went straight to the center of the forest regardless of the giant bear's obstruction. As a result, he met a gorilla just after entering the center of the forest and was knocked away by a punch, almost dying. Fortunately, the giant bear followed him and carried him out of the center of the forest. Several battles broke out in the forest behind. Barrett approached with injuries and observed them, and finally identified several overlords. Woohoo! The giant bear rolled his eyes, disbelief written all over his face. Barrett smiled and didn't argue too much. He obviously didn't have enough brains to argue with a bear. Then he chuckled and said, "Lazy bear, you want me to help you roast this tiger?" Woohoo! Upon hearing this, the giant bear immediately nodded enthusiastically, drooling at the corners of his mouth. Haha, drag it and follow me. Barrett smiled. He had been craving for this tiger meat for a long time. Moreover, this tiger was the overlord of the periphery, so the energy in its body was naturally not weak, which was very good for his body. Moreover, according to his memories of his previous life, tiger bones were very good for bone growth and could enhance the hardness and strength of one's own bones, not to mention this giant tiger from this extraordinary world. Woohoo! The giant bear drooled as it dragged the giant tiger and followed Barrett out of the forest. All the animals along the way sensed the giant bear's scent and avoided it. Soon the man and the bear dragged the giant tiger to the beach, and they got busy. The giant bear was responsible for cutting wood and building the giant grill, while Barrett was responsible for skinning and chopping meat from the giant tiger. Soon, a blazing fire rose on the beach, and several huge pieces of tiger meat were placed on the makeshift grill, sizzling with oil. The tempting aroma made the giant bear sitting next to the grill stare at the tiger meat without blinking, drooling. Looking at the giant bear, Barrett chuckled, picked up the long knife in his hand and prepared to cut off another piece of tiger meat. Bang! However, as soon as he exerted force, the long sword in his hand shattered directly. Barrett looked at the broken long sword and was stunned involuntarily. The slight sound also attracted the attention of the giant bear. It turned its head and saw Barrett staring at a broken knife in a daze. It couldn't help but make a woohoo sound and asked, "It's okay, the knife just broke and I didn't react for a moment." Barrett chuckled, then used the broken knife to cut off another piece of tiger meat and placed it on the grill. The giant bear glanced at the broken knife in Barrett's hand, with a thoughtful look in its big eyes. It remembered this knife. Barrett had been carrying this knife when he first started fighting it, and there were several cracks on the knife that were made by it. Then, the big bear patted Barrett gently, gesturing with its huge bear paw. Barrett quickly understood what the giant bear meant, and said that he would give him a knife after he had eaten and drunk his fill. Barrett smiled bitterly. He never expected that one day he would be comforted by a bear, but he couldn't help but feel a touch of warmth in his heart. In his previous life, his business failed and people around him avoided him. In this life, he was abandoned since childhood and grew up in deception and betrayal. He hadn't experienced this kind of sincerity from a giant bear for a long time. People are worse than animals. Barrett was silent in his heart, then he patted the giant bear and said with a hearty smile, "Then my knife is in your hands." Woohoo! The giant bear nodded his head, a smile appearing on his face. Chapter 5 Giant Bear Treasure. At midnight, the moon is high in the sky, and the stars are rippling. Under the moonlight, it seems as if it is flowing everywhere. Under the bright moonlight, a man and a bear lay on the beach, looking at the starry sky. In Barrett's eyes, there were wisps of reflections, figures, and pictures, passing by like a horse galloping through flowers. Call out! A meteor streaked across the night sky, and the bright light instantly illuminated Barrett's face. Looking closely, 2 crystal drops hung at the corners of his eyes. "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry." Barrett whispered with longing in his eyes. In his previous life, he could be said to have owed no one, but he felt extremely indebted to his parents. "You raised me when I was young, and I will raise you when you are old." He knew this sentence, but had never really fulfilled it until he was plotted against and lived like a dog. His parents gave him their only savings and mortgaged their house in his hometown to help him get out of trouble. In the end, both his parents passed away. At that moment, he realized that although his parents were nagging, they were the most sincere people to him and the ones who cared about him the most. Good things and beautiful things are thinking of you. It's just that it's too late. Barrett looked a little gloomy, and a hint of sadness appeared on his face involuntarily. Woohoo! Perhaps sensing Barrett's sadness, the giant bear gently pushed Barrett, with a hint of doubt in his big eyes. Ha ha. Barrett reached out to wipe away the tears from the corners of his eyes, chuckled and patted the giant bear, smiling, "Big bear, I'm fine. Aren't you going to take me to get the knife? Let's go and take a look now." Woohoo. When the giant bear heard this, a smile immediately appeared on his face. He quickly got up and urged Barrett to go with him to get the knife. Barrett stood up with a smile. He was also a little curious about the long sword that the giant bear mentioned. The giant bear was somewhat excited along the way, and kept gesturing and describing how huge his treasure house was and what treasures were inside. Barrett was also very cooperative and listened with a smile. At the same time, he became interested in the giant bear's treasure trove and became more and more curious. Soon, the giant bear brought Barrett to its territory, which was a huge cave. Beside the cave, a 1-meter tall bear cub was playing and looked carefree. Roar. As soon as they reached the cave entrance, the giant bear let out a low growl. The little bear stopped playing, turned to look at the giant bear, then ran over happily, rubbing against the giant bear's legs with a woo. The giant bear stretched out its claws and gently touched the little bear. Finally, it looked proudly at Barrett behind it and called woo twice, indicating that this was its child. Barrett was speechless. He wanted to say that at his current age, he was just a cub among humans, but he was obviously stupid to argue with a bear, so he decisively changed the subject. "Big bear, aren't you going to take me to get the knife?" Roar. When the giant bear heard this, he looked at Barrett unhappily, then patted the little bear gently, growled, and signaled it to go play by itself. The little bear looked at the giant bear reluctantly, but did not reject it. He reluctantly left the giant bear and ran to the cave entrance to play. After the little bear left, the giant bear took Barrett into the cave. The cave was not deep, but very wide. Although it was a little dark, Barrett could still barely see inside with his eyesight. Roar. Walking into the cave, the giant bear roared triumphantly and stretched out its paw to point to the right side of the cave. Barrett turned his head and saw a pile of things placed messily on the right, including gold, boxes, strange stones, and some strange leather. It was obvious that these were the giant bear's treasures. Barrett was a little surprised. He didn't expect that a bear would collect these things, but these things in front of him seemed useless to him now. So he said unhappily, "Big bear, didn't you ask me to come and look at the knives? These things are useless to me." Roar. The giant bear growled in dissatisfaction, glared at Barrett unhappily, strode to where the items were placed, and kept scratching at them with its claws. Barrett also followed curiously, but did not disturb him. He just watched the giant bear rummaging through a pile of debris with interest. Soon, a pile of things were scattered everywhere, and a 3-meter-long box was pulled out. When the giant bear saw the box, a smile appeared in his eyes. He casually used his claws to clean up the things on it. Then he exerted force with his paws, picked up the whole box, waved his claws at Barrett, and walked out of the cave. Barrett followed the giant bear out of the cave with a curious look on his face. Walking out of the cave, the giant bear put down the box, pointed at it and growled, signaling Barrett to open the box. There was a hint of pride in that little expression. Barrett ignored the giant bear and turned to look at the box. The box was very exquisite, dark red in color, with some chrysanthemum patterns carved on it, which was obviously the crest of a family. Looking at the exquisite carvings, Barrett felt a little bit of anticipation in his heart. Something that could be put in such an exquisite box must be very extraordinary. Barrett walked forward and opened the box. Inside the box was a purple-black long sword. Under the long sword was a black scabbard with a metallic luster. The long sword was very similar to the ancient Tang sword that Barrett had seen in his previous life, except that it was much longer. The long sword was more than 2 meters long, and was engraved with small patterns all over. It looked very exquisite, and the blade was also very shiny, exuding a hint of chillness and coldness. Good knife. Looking at the black and purple long sword, Barrett couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Barrett reached out and grasped the long knife. A flash of light flashed across the blade, making a crisp, buzzing sound, as if it had life and was trying to break free from Barrett. "I will find a suitable owner for you after I leave." Feeling the resistance of the long sword, a trace of regret flashed in Barrett's eyes. Although he could use a sword, he was better at using a halberd and fists. For him, a knife can only be used as a tool for cutting meat and chopping wood. It is worse to use it with bare hands in combat. Barrett closed the box gently, and a rolled piece of leather fell out of the box. What? Barrett picked up the leather with some surprise. The leather was not very big, and it was densely covered with some words and pictures of little people. Barrett was not illiterate. When they were in the endless war, although the bullet squad was used as cannon fodder, there were people who taught them to read. Naturally, he knew how to read. He took a rough look and found that the leather was an inheritance, a kendo inheritance from the Shimotsuki family of Wano country. The person who placed the inheritance was called Shimotsuki Seiwa, and the sword was also forged by Shimotsuki Seizaburo, named Zhui. Zhui was 2.68 meters long, and its craftsmanship was not inferior to the 21 skills of the great sword. However, because the sword was too long and it was a spiritual long sword, no one in Wano country could use it, so Shimotsuki Seikazu had to take Zhui abroad to find a master for the sword. However, Shimotsuki Seiwa's actions clearly violated the laws of Wano country and he was hunted down by the samurai of Wano country. After being caught, he secretly wrote down his experiences and inheritance, put them in a box containing Zhui, and then threw the box into the sea. After many twists and turns, the box finally drifted to this island and was carried home by a giant bear who liked to collect treasures. After looking at the leather, Barrett sighed. If he remembered correctly, a few years later, Orochi came to power, the Kazuki clan was destroyed, and the major families in Wano country suffered a miserable end. Except for Master Zoro who had left long ago, those who stayed behind would be worse off dead than alive. However, even if Barrett knew the ending, he would not change anything. Not to mention his own abilities, he has no interest in the troubles in Wano country. But no matter what, the inheritance of Kendo can also allow him to learn some skills, which can be a good supplement to his fighting skills and also supplement his understanding of the world. Thinking of this, Barrett couldn't help but smile. Then he rolled up the leather, held the box and said to the giant bear, "Thank you, Big Bear. I like this gift very much. Bring the children here when you have time, and I'll grill you." As he spoke, Barrett bowed deeply to the giant bear. Roar. The giant bear waved his hand indifferently, but his eyes never left the box. He felt a slight pain deep in his eyes and swore to himself that he would bring meat with his whole family in the future. Seeing the giant bear looking reluctant, Barrett chuckled and said, "Big Bear, there is still a lot of tiger meat. Why don't you bring the little bear along and we can have another meal?" The big bear's eyes lit up when he heard that, and he woofed twice before quickly running towards the two little bears. He didn't care about the two confused little bears, and picked them up one by one with his paw. He waved his paw at Barrett, signaling him to get on his back. Barrett didn't waste any time. He jumped onto the giant bear's back and rode towards the beach at lightning speed. After about 10 minutes, one man and 3 bears came to the shore, set up a rack and started a fire, starting a new round of banquet. Chapter 6 Inheritance. There are many schools of kendo in the world of One Piece, among which the most are in Wano country, which is headed by the 6 major families, Amatsuki, Kazuki, Shimotsuki, Keigetsu, Ujitsuki, and Kurozumi. The inheritance of each school of kendo is a secret in Wano country. Even if you become a retainer of the family, you will not be taught the core kendo. The inheritance that Barrett obtained was obviously extraordinary. It not only recorded the evolution of the Shimotsuki clan's swordsmanship, but also introduced some schools. In return for your kindness, if circumstances permit in the future, I will save the life of one of your descendants. Barrett put down the leather and sighed softly. To be honest, he is not interested in any family in Wano country and does not want to get involved in anything at all. However, the sword-wielding heritage of the Frost Moon clan broadened his horizons and helped him understand the so-called sword-wielding ways of this world, which supplemented his combat abilities to a certain extent. Although he is not a good person, he cannot do nothing. He needs to do something to at least feel at ease, otherwise there will be a hurdle in his heart that he cannot get over. After a while, Barrett put away the leather, picked up the newly made wooden halberd and walked into the water. Although there are many schools of thought in One Piece, the basic sword techniques are all similar and can be divided into 8 movements: sweep, chop, flick, cut, plunder, hold, slash and thrust. These are extremely similar to the 8 sword techniques of China in the previous life. Moreover, most of the swords in One Piece are tang swords, which focus on slashing, chopping, slicing, and sweeping, and emphasize strength. Compared with the halberd method, it is simpler and more convenient. There are 13 basic halberd techniques, the basic methods of which are picking, grabbing, locking, intercepting, stabbing, hooking, and connotation. There are a total of 48 methods with infinite variations, namely, stick, lean on, search, lift, collapse, hang, push, pick, intercept, block, support, transform, turn, return, frustrate, pull, shake, pounce, slide, press, seal, close, fold, dodge, push, shake, block, sweep, hit, hug, probe, pierce, shed, entangle, eat, frame, copy, penetrate, throw, slice, support, chop, trick, gather, hook, hide, gather, and flip. There are 120 variations of the moves, namely, shake and pounce to protect, pounce and return, pounce and search, pounce and retreat, pounce and chop, pounce and rush, pounce and catch, pounce and support, pounce and advance, pounce and stick, pounce and gather, pounce and lift, pounce and intercept, pounce and advance, reverse lift and lean, reverse intercept, stick and penetrate, and throw and hold. However, Barrett was inherited from Liu Bu, so there is no need to talk about the basic halberd skills, that is a compulsory course. And his 36 halberds to break the army uses a double-sided halberd, also known as the Fang Tian painted halberd. After being perfected by Liu Bu, it pays more attention to cleverness and strength than ordinary halberd skills, and adds the cutting, chopping, slicing and sweeping of the knife. The sword fighting inheritance left by Shimotsuki Ryuch focused on the analysis of basic sword fighting, and Barrett was deeply moved. For a moment, the water was filled with waves and sparkling with cold light. After receiving the inheritance, Barrett trained harder every day, and every day on the island became more fulfilling. Training and fighting became his only theme songs. Besides practicing, he also tried to study the other 6 Navy styles with the memories of his past life, in preparation for learning life return in the future. When watching anime in his previous life, Barrett always felt that the 6 styles of the Navy was a pitfall, but as One Piece went deeper and deeper, he discovered that the 6 styles of the Navy was not that simple, it was just that the people who appeared were too rubbish, which lowered the average level of the 6 styles. Otherwise, pure physical warriors like Garp and Zephyr in the Navy are both at the ceiling level of combat power. And CP0 who appeared later is also stronger than the other. The animal system, 6 styles and domineering aura are definitely wolf slayers. Moreover, according to some discussions among One Piece fans that I saw in my previous life, each of the 6 styles is very important. The iron block and paper painting correspond to the armament color and observation color. Learning them will be of great help in awakening the 2 kinds of domineering in the future. Shaving and moonstep are a way of moving at super speed, while the other is capable of air combat, which will be of great help in future battles. Finger guns can also be used with different fingers to increase the hardness of the fingers and strengthen themselves. Lanjiao can also exercise one's leg strength, enhance one's own power, and prevent oneself from being top-heavy and having shortcomings. Although Barrett has a heritage, he also knows the dangers of this world. Naturally, he does not want to leave any shortcomings, and he is also very concerned about physical skills. Moreover, compared to others, he can practice for up to 21 hours a day. No one knew how, but after the fusion of souls, his spirit became extremely strong. He only needed to sleep 3 hours a day to recover all his conditions. Moreover, with the supplement of large amounts of meat, his body's recovery ability was also extremely strong. He didn't worry about the strong intensity of training dragging his body down. In this way, Barrett lived a boring yet interesting life. Barrett practiced every day, and during the process, he kept recalling his memories of the 6 styles of the Navy from his previous life. Finally, relying on his strong understanding and his identity as a time traveler, he spent a year analyzing the 6 styles of the Navy, and gradually mastered the 6 styles. Although he couldn't use them 100%, he finally verified the method, and all he had to do was to practice more deeply in the future. Moreover, as he grew older, his physique also grew. His height soared to 3.5 meters, and his strength increased a lot again. He had mastered both the halberd and boxing techniques, and was much stronger than he was a year ago. The giant bear was no match for him half a year ago. He even competed with the overlord of the forest several times. Although he still couldn't beat him, he was not as powerless as before. He even went into the sea to fight with the sea kings to hone his skills. But growth always comes with a price, and this was the case with Barrett. When he went to sea for the first time, he encountered a marine creature about 30 meters long. Although he went through great difficulties and killed it, he was also seriously injured and finally barely made it to shore. But it was not without benefits. During his battle with the marine creatures, he accidentally swallowed a large amount of blood from the sea kings, which caused his physical strength to grow explosively. After waking up from his coma, his strength and physical strength doubled, which made him ecstatic. So, he went into the sea again to look for marine creatures, but after swallowing their blood again, the previous effect was gone. However, he also discovered that bathing in sea kings could still strengthen his body. Although the effect was not strong, coupled with hard training, his speed of becoming stronger was greatly enhanced. From that day on, he had an indissoluble bond with the sea kings. In the year 1490 of the Huang calendar, countless seagulls delivered newspapers to various parts of the world, and waves were once again set off on the sea. On the nameless island, Barrett looked at the countless newspaper gulls flying in the sky. He felt curious and took out a coin he got from the giant bear and threw it at a newspaper gull. The seagull understood and caught the coin in its mouth, and a newspaper fell next to Barrett. As Barrett received the newspaper, all the newspaper delivery seagulls circling above him flew away at once, leaving Barrett speechless. Barrett smiled and shook his head, picked up the newspaper and opened it. At the top of the newspaper, it was written, on January 1491, the family of Admiral Blackarm Zephyr was killed. It is said that the pirate who killed Zephyr's family was the pirate that Zephyr captured but did not kill. Don't kill the general. Barrett sneered when he saw the news. He felt that Zephyr's behavior was very stupid and the consequences of doing so would only harm others and himself. What's more, it is obvious that someone was plotting this matter, otherwise why would the general's family living in Marineford be killed? Barrett took a look and then stopped paying attention to the newspaper. He threw it away and returned to the beach to start his own training. However, when he just walked to the beach, two people suddenly appeared on the sea, a middle-aged woman and a 2-year-old child. There were obvious blood stains on their clothes, and it was obvious that they were seriously injured. Barrett hesitated for a moment, but still walked over. As a modern man, it was obviously impossible for him to remain indifferent after seeing these things. Barrett turned over the two men's bodies and saw that their abdomens were swollen, obviously they had drunk a lot. Without hesitation, he held one hand each, controlled the strength, gently pressed down on their abdomens, and slowly let them spit out the sea water. Cough cough. After a while, the woman woke up first. After opening her eyes, she immediately shouted anxiously, "Child, my child." Cough cough. Just at this moment, the child woke up, but seemed a little dazed and as if he was frightened. "Luke, my child." When the woman heard the child coughing, she hugged the child regardless of anything, tears streaming down her face. Barrett looked at the deep affection between the two mothers and their children, and he could not help but feel envious. However, when he saw the blood slowly seeping from their backs, he interrupted their reminiscence and reminded them, "Sister, if you and your child don't get treatment, you will have to meet in hell." Barrett's sudden voice brought the woman back to her senses. Looking at her child's clothes that were constantly bleeding, she immediately let go of the little boy in panic, fell to her knees on the ground with a bang, and kowtowed, "Sir, please save my child." Pity the hearts of parents in the world. Looking at the woman's actions, Barrett's heart was shocked and he felt vaguely touched. He helped the woman up and said softly, "Sister, I don't have any medicine here. I can only use some folk remedies. It depends on you whether you can make it through it. Sir, please save my child first, I'm fine." The woman was very excited. She held Barrett's hand tightly, and her tears could not stop flowing. Chapter 7 Women and Children. Hey! Barrett sighed softly, squatted down, picked up the little boy, put the little boy on the stone where he usually exercised, then undressed the little boy. A long scar cut almost half of the boy's body. Hiss. Looking at the boy's wound, Barrett couldn't help but gasp, and quickly took out the needle and thread he usually used to sew his own wounds. He took out a bamboo cup, poured a cup of clean water, put some salt in it, placed the needle and thread in it, and took out a wooden stick and handed it to the woman. Sister, I don't have any medicine here. The needle and thread dipped in salt water will be very painful when sewed. Let the child bite this stick, otherwise he will easily bite his tongue. And you have to hold him down and don't let him move around. It is good. The woman didn't say much, she took the stick decisively, pinched the little boy's mouth, and put the stick into the boy's mouth. The little boy opened his mouth woodenly, appearing to be very cooperative. Seeing the little boy's situation, the woman held back her tears, her eyes red as she pressed the little boy down and said to Barrett, Sir, you start. A mother is strong. Seeing the woman's appearance and the blood oozing from her back, Barrett sighed inwardly and decisively picked up the needle and thread to start sewing. What? As soon as Barrett inserted the needle, the little boy seemed to come back to his senses under the intense pain. He screamed and the stick in his mouth rolled to the side. The woman was quick-witted and quickly pulled her arm out of the little boy's mouth. She raised her pale face to look at Barrett and said softly, Sir, I will hold him down. You continue to sew the wound. Sister, you are a good mother. Seeing the woman's actions, Barrett was shocked. He exclaimed in admiration from the bottom of his heart, and then sewed up the wound quickly. When the woman saw Barrett's swift movements, a smile appeared on her pale face, and she gained more confidence that her child could survive. After the little boy came to his senses, he found that he was biting his mother. He tasted the fishy sweetness in his mouth and tears fell involuntarily. He endured the pain and slowly loosened his teeth. Barrett saw the appearance of the mother and son. He was envious but also shocked. The speed of his hands increased a lot instantly. In just a few minutes, all the wounds of the little boy were sutured. After the stitches were completed, the woman and the little boy fainted at the same time. Barrett did not delay. He cleaned the needle and thread with salt water again, helped the woman turn over, and forcefully tore open the clothes on her back. The woman's back was covered with knife marks, some deep and some shallow, crisscrossing. I don't know how you managed to hold on. Seeing the woman's wounds, Barrett sighed, took out the needle and thread and quickly sewed them up. After more than 10 minutes, all the wounds on the woman's body were sutured. Barrett then moved the two men onto the tiger skin and used salt water to clean their wounds, causing the unconscious men, one large and one small, to frown in pain. He then fed each of them some Sea King blood. Whether you can survive depends on your luck. Looking at the two wounded men, one big and one small, Barrett sighed and walked into the forest. In the evening, the soft moonlight fell on the ground, and the unconscious woman woke up slowly. Congratulations, you survived. Hearing the noise, Barrett spoke softly. He was a little surprised that the woman was able to wake up, and he had to admire the physique of the people in this world. With a woman's injury like this, if it happened on Blue Star, let alone being able to survive for so long, it would be unknown whether she could even be sent to the hospital. But in this world, it is obviously different. The woman did not respond in a hurry, but was a little panicked. After seeing the little boy sleeping beside her and feeling his breath, it was as if a big stone fell from her heart. Then she said to Barrett softly, Sir, thank you for saving us. It's okay, it's just a small favor. You've also made me see the greatness of maternal love. Barrett responded with a smile. The woman looked at the little boy next to her gently, and then said firmly, Sir, no matter what, I will definitely let my husband repay you. Hee hee. Barrett chuckled, Sister, let's not talk about anything else for now. Come and eat something. You have lost too much blood and need to replenish energy. The animal meat here is very nutritious. Thank you, sir. The woman thanked him without any formalities and slowly walked to the fire and sat down. Come, big sister, try it. Barrett cut off a piece of meat with a broken knife and handed it to the woman with a smile. Thank you. The woman seemed to have been hungry for a long time. She picked up the lean meat and swallowed it in big mouthfuls. Barrett didn't say much when he saw this, but just handed the meat to the woman piece by piece. However, not long after, dozens of kilograms of meat were eaten by the woman, which left Barrett stunned. Sir, I'm sorry, I needed food to replenish my energy, so I ate a little more. The woman felt embarrassed being stared at and a blush passed across her pale face. It's okay, no problem. Barrett waved his hand, looked away, then used a knife to pick up several dozen pounds of meat and started grilling. The woman was sitting, emitting an aura, and some of the exposed wounds on her body slowly began to heal. It seems that I saved a great person. Seeing this, Barrett narrowed his eyes and secretly guessed the woman's identity. Soon, the woman's aura dissipated. She looked at the barbecue on the grill, licked her lips, and asked with a red face, "Sir, can I have some more?" Hee hee. Barrett chuckled, "It's okay. I made a lot today. Just eat as much as you want." After saying that, Barrett cut the meat into several large pieces and handed them to the woman. He then went to cut several dozen pounds of meat and started grilling it again. What a nice guy. The woman looked at Barrett working quietly, feeling relieved, and then she started eating again. She needed to recover as soon as possible so that she could have some protection. After repeating this process over and over again, the woman's face became rosy after eating more than 100 kilograms of meat. Barrett could also see clearly that some of the wounds on the woman's body had healed, leaving only faint scars. However, Barrett did not ask or say anything. Even when the woman asked him his name, he did not say much and found an excuse to change the subject. After the woman recovered from eating meat, he had actually guessed that the woman should be using the life return, which was exclusive to the Navy and the world government. After eating and drinking, Barrett carried the huge rock into the sea and started exercising slowly. We still have to train so late. Seeing Barrett exercising, the woman murmured something in her heart, but since they had just met, she didn't ask much. She picked up the broken knife on the ground, cut off a small piece of meat and put it on the grill. 3 hours later, the little boy woke up, and the woman and the little boy acted out their mother-son love again, with tears in their eyes. After eating something, the little boy fell asleep in the woman's arms again. It's been 6 hours. Isn't it harmful to exercise like this? The woman looked at Barrett, who was still exercising in the sea, and murmured in her heart. After thinking for a while, the woman decided to remind Barrett, so she gently put the little boy down, got up and walked to the beach of Barrett, and shouted to Barrett, "Sir, you will hurt your body if you exercise like this, and you will have many hidden injuries in the future. Sister, I have a special body, so this little bit of training is nothing." Hearing the woman's voice, Barrett responded loudly and then returned to training. Hey! Seeing that she couldn't persuade Barrett, the woman sighed quietly, said nothing more, turned back to the little boy, and fell asleep soon. Shish. The next day, the woman was awakened by the sound of breaking air. She looked around vigilantly and saw Barrett dancing with a halberd. She immediately felt relieved. Then he stood up and added some dry wood to the fire to make the flames burn. Then he used a broken knife to cut several dozen pounds of animal meat and put it on the grill to roast. Not long after, the aroma of meat wafted in the air. Barrett smelled the aroma, looked back in surprise, and then continued his training. 3 hours later, Barrett stopped and walked towards the grill. As soon as Barrett sat down, the woman cut a large piece of meat and handed it to Barrett, saying with a smile, "Sir, it's really hard to meet a young man as hardworking as you." Sister, you're joking. I was just trying to protect myself. Barrett took the barbecue, responded with a smile, and then ate the barbecue in big mouthfuls. Hearing Barrett's answer, the woman narrowed her eyes and asked with a smile, "Sir, since you want to become stronger, why don't you join the Navy? The Navy has systematic training and special strong people to guide you." Hearing this, Barrett looked at the woman playfully and asked with a smile, "Sister, you should be a Navy, right?" Yes. The woman nodded and said, "I can be your recommender. Once you join the Navy, you can directly enter the headquarters. I can guarantee this to you. Thank you for your kindness, sister, but I prefer a free and easy life." Barrett smiled and shook his head, then devoured the barbecue in big mouthfuls. Hearing Barrett's refusal, the woman frowned and asked softly, "Sir, do you have any misunderstandings about the Navy?" Barrett frowned, but soon relaxed his brows, and then responded calmly, "Sister, you think too much. I just want to live freely and don't want to join any organization. Sir, I can tell you about the benefits of the Navy." The Navy. The woman seemed not to hear Barrett's dissatisfaction and continued to insist, as if it would be a sin for Barrett not to join the Navy. Hearing the woman chattering, Barrett did not say a word, but just ate the barbecue calmly. After the woman finished speaking, Barrett looked at her and said softly, "Sister, I know you mean well, but is the Navy really as good as you say? What you see is only part of it. Most of it is just whitewashing the situation. In some places, corpses are everywhere and people eat their own children. In some places, wars occur all year round and children are forced to serve in the military and fight at the age of 5. In some places. Chapter 8 Zepha's Wife and Children. Barrett spoke lightly, as if he was telling a story. But the woman's face turned paler with every news she heard. She could feel that what Barrett said was true. Sister, let's not talk about anything else. Let's just talk about the incident 2 days ago when General Zepha's family was attacked. Do you think this incident was a coincidence? Seeing the pale face of the woman, Barrett spoke again. Isn't it a coincidence? Hearing this, the woman shuddered, and even spoke cautiously and unconfidently. Coincide. Barrett sneered. Sister, do you know where General Zepha's family lives? Marineford, the woman blurted out. Yup. Barrett sighed. Marineford, that's the Navy's headquarters, arguably the most secure place in the Navy. As one of the most powerful people in the Navy, Admiral Zephyr's family was killed in Marineford. Isn't this ridiculous? Isn't this a coincidence? The woman's face was pale, her eyes were dull and without a trace of focus. Barrett's words were like a hammer, hitting the woman's heart again and again, and tears flowed down her face involuntarily. Looking at the woman's appearance, Barrett sighed and said, Sister, sometimes it's good to be an ordinary person. Sir, I'm sorry, actually. I am Zepha's wife Rhine. The woman came back to her senses, with a sad look on her face and a bleak tone. Oh, I'm so sorry, sister. I was just speaking from my heart and didn't mean to slander Admiral Zepha. Barrett pretended to be surprised, with an embarrassed expression on his face. In fact, after Rhine returned with his life, he had some vague guesses, but he didn't expect that the people he saved were Zepha's wife and children who had passed away in the original work. It's okay, sir. I have to thank you for saving our lives. Rhine waved his hand, and then said with a somewhat dim look in his eyes, Sir, I actually thought about what you just said carefully. Maybe it's really like what you said. Someone can't tolerate Zepha, so they want to target us. Can you help me analyze it again? Rhine said, looking at Barrett with pleading eyes. Barrett looked stunned. To be honest, he was a little flattered. He didn't expect that Zepha's wife would come to him for help. But after seeing Rhine's sincere eyes, Barrett thought about it, and based on some of Hamy's conclusions, he said, Sister, in fact, Admiral Zepha is a real Navy, but the justice he upholds is not suitable for the world government. After all, the world government is not as fair and honest as he thinks. If he does this, it will harm the interests of many people, and others will definitely harm him. After what happened to you, do you think Admiral Zephyr would become disheartened, resign as Admiral of the Navy, and return home to retire? Yes. Rhine nodded firmly. Then if Sengoku and others use comradeship to bind him and let him be a naval instructor, do you think Admiral Zephyr will stay? Barrett continued to ask. Yes. Rhine hesitated for a while, but when he thought of Zeph's loyalty, he nodded. Sure enough, close friends know each other best. Barrett muttered to himself, and then calmly spit out a bombshell. Then let me tell you, Sengoku, the Admiral of the Navy, Vice Admiral Suru, and even Vice Admiral Garp all know the truth about your mother and son, but they just won't tell Zephyr. Do you believe it? How can it be? Hearing this, Rhine seemed to have received a severe shock. He stood up suddenly, his eyes wide open, his face full of disbelief and disbelief. How is it impossible? Barrett said calmly, Sengoku is known as a wise general, Sora is a marshal, Suru is a chief of staff, and Garp can insult the celestial dragons without any problems. Do these people have low IQs? Maybe they didn't know at first, but after the incident, with their wisdom, they must have thought of something and found out something. It's just that because the Navy needs Zepha, they must have concealed it for the Navy. Quote. How could they do this? Rhine was not stupid either. After listening to Barrett's analysis, he suddenly came to his senses. For the Navy, sacrificing one Zephyr is nothing. Barrett's words were like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Rhine's face turned extremely pale, and he couldn't bear it anymore. He collapsed to the ground, staring blankly. Hey, I'm doing this for your family's good. If Zepha doesn't quit the Navy, this kind of thing will happen to your family sooner or later. Barrett looked at Rhine and sighed in his heart. After a long time, Rhine slowly recovered. After a long silence, he said in a deep voice, I can't let Zepha stay in the Navy anymore. There are all liars in it. With his temper, once he is shocked by something, he will definitely do something bad. Damn it. Hearing this, Barrett was shocked and felt extremely surprised. He didn't expect that Zepha's wife knew Zepha so well. It was like a prophecy that locked the ending. Isn't Zepha's ending the same as what his wife said? Because his students were killed, the pirates who killed his students were recruited by the world government. Zephyr finally rebelled against the Navy, acted recklessly, ruined his reputation, and was hated by the Navy. He was buried by his three main disciples. Akainu dug the pit, Kizaru took action, and Aokiji built the tomb. Before Barrett could come to his senses, Rhine said to himself, but if I ask Zepha to quit the Navy, he definitely won't want to. That's his lifelong belief. What should I do? Rhine's voice was a little bitter. When he thought of Zepha's temperament, he felt depressed. He hung his head in frustration and cried. Mom, don't cry. At this moment, the little boy woke up and gently patted his mother with his little hands. Rhine was shocked, and quickly wiped away her tears. She smiled and said to the little boy, Luke, Mommy's eyes were blinded by sand just now. Mom, I will protect you in the future. The little boy stared at his mother for a long time before he slowly spoke. Luke is so sensible. Hearing this, Rhine rubbed Luke's hair and responded with a choked voice. Barrett did not disturb the two of them, but just watched them talk silently. His thoughts unconsciously recalled his childhood, and a tear appeared in the corner of his eyes without him noticing. Sir, what's wrong with you? After an unknown amount of time, Luke fell into a deep sleep again, and Rhine's voice reached Barrett's ears. Haha, it's okay. Barrett wiped his eyes casually and said with a smile, Sister, your son is very sensible. Sir, you're joking. Luke only became sensible after this experience. When talking about Luke, Rhine's eyes showed tenderness and affection. Between life and death there are great terrors, but also great opportunities. Luke can be said to have turned a disaster into a blessing. Barrett said with emotion. He saw Luke's performance just now. It seemed that escaping death this time had opened Luke's mind early. His mind had become so calm at such a young age. As long as he was well trained in the future, he would definitely be an extraordinary person. I just want him to grow up happily and don't want him to go through so much. Rhine looked at the sleeping Luke, a trace of heartache flashed across his eyes, and there was a hint of relief in his tone. Barrett didn't say anything. He understood Zepha's wife. His parents were like this in his previous life. When he was young, no matter how poor the family was, they never let him suffer or get tired. After a while, Rhine asked Barrett, Sir, I would like to trouble you to help me think of a way to make Zepha recognize the Navy so that I can let Zepha quit the Navy. Sister, the method is actually very simple, but it will make you see the dark side of the Navy and the world government. Are you sure you want to do this? Barrett hesitated for a long time before speaking. To be honest, he didn't want to confront the Navy. After all, he had read the original work and knew that the Navy and the world government were not simple. But on second thought, as long as he doesn't want to be a dog in the future, he will definitely be on the opposite side of the world government and the Navy. In the Navy, the most terrifying one is not the strongest Garp, nor the wise General Sengoku, but the future Navy instructor Zephyr. Because of his existence, the Navy has countless elites. If Zephyr could be allowed to leave the Navy, perhaps the Navy could find other instructors, but it would be difficult to achieve the same effect as Zephyr. Because of Zephyr's reputation, his position as admiral, his own strength and superb teaching methods, there is almost no one in the Navy who can match him. So letting Zephyr leave the Navy would invisibly reduce most of the Navy's strength. Helping Zephyr's family is also helping yourself. Sure, let him see clearly that Zephyr will not regret quitting the Navy. Rhine nodded firmly. Okay then. Once Luke recovers from his injury, we'll leave here. Barrett nodded in agreement. It is good. Rhine glanced at the sleeping Luke and nodded slightly. Barrett didn't say anything more, but turned and walked towards the ocean, carrying a stone and started exercising. Chapter 9 Rhine's Advice. Half a year later, on an unknown island. Sunshine and beach. Rhine earnestly explained the principles of life return as well as the conditions and methods of cultivation. Shanks, the life return is mainly to control one's own energy, so that one. Barrett sat next to her and listened attentively. He was very envious of the life return. This skill was a magical skill in the world of pirates. As long as he controlled his stomach and mastered the way to consume energy quickly, his vitality would be greatly improved. The vitality can be directly referred to the monkey family in the original work, and whether the Navy admirals are much more resistant than pirates. As for the name Shanks, it was just Barrett's bad taste and he made it up casually. Ryan spoke slowly but carefully, making sure that Barrett could understand every detail, such as how to control the body's energy and how to restore oneself through rapid digestion. Ryan asked again and again to make sure that Barrett understood before moving on to the next step. Barrett was not impatient. It was such a rare opportunity to have such a teacher teaching seriously. As a time traveler, he has the cultural heritage of Hamey from his previous life and the martial arts heritage of his family. His ability to comprehension is not top-notch, but it is not much different. With Ryan in charge, his understanding of the return of life is getting deeper and deeper. This was not the first time Ryan had taught him. Ryan had given him guidance since the last time they talked. Over the past 6 months, with Ryan's guidance, the 6 styles have been greatly improved, and many mistakes have been corrected. Ryan also revealed some secrets of the 6 styles, such as using the energy generated by iron blocks to temper bones to enhance the strength of one's own bones. It is said that this is a practice method researched by Zephyr himself. However, this method would be very painful when exercising, and Ryan had specifically told Barrett about this. Barrett knew that this was Zephyr's training method, so he was unwilling to give up and began to practice decisively. You have to know that although Zephyr's combat power is not as good as Garp's, it is also at the ceiling level in the pirate world. If it were not for his own personality and experience, his future would not be so miserable. But what Ryan said was right. This tempering method was indeed a bit abnormal. The pain was definitely no worse than level 10 labor pains. Barrett did not dare to temper other parts of his body and started from his fists. However, with his physique, Barrett's fists would become swollen after each exercise. Fortunately, he had a special physique, and after resting, the swelling in his fists would subside, which amazed Ryan for a while. But it must be said that birds of a feather flock together. Although Ryan is weaker and does not have dual-color domineering, his teaching level is no worse than Zephyr. He has a very sharp eye and can give advice on both halberd techniques and 6 styles. Over the past 6 months, Barrett's overall strength has increased sharply. Compared with Ryan, his current strength is comparable to that of an elite major general in this unit. Barrett's growth also makes Ryan feel sincerely happy. This may be the joy of a teacher teaching excellent students. Shanks, I have finished explaining the whole story of returning life. Now I will tell you a special method, but no one has ever tried it. Are you willing to try it? Ryan looked at Barrett with a smile, his eyes shining. Sister Ryan, please tell me first. Barrett couldn't help but shrink his neck. Instead of agreeing immediately, he asked carefully. He had seen this kind of look 2 months ago, and always felt that it was the look of a hunter seeing his favorite prey. Ever since Ryan knew that he had a special physique and could recover quickly, Ryan always came up with some strange ideas, such as 3-in-1, combining Storm Kick, Shave and Moon Step into one, using the impact of Storm Kick, combined with Shave and Moon Step, to create a short flying effect, and the speed exceeded the limit. In order to practice this move, Barrett's legs were almost scrapped. However, the 3-in-1 skill is really good. After countless explosions and integrations, Barrett successfully created a 3-in-1 skill. He can fly at high speed at low altitude, and the speed is several points faster than using shaving on the ground. However, this skill is also extremely physically demanding. Even if he uses all his strength now, he can only last for more than 10 minutes. But in just over 10 minutes, he can fly dozens of kilometers, which is faster than some people who have eaten flying animals. And this move will only get faster and faster as his strength increases. It is definitely a magical skill, but only someone with a special physique can learn it. It can be said to be his exclusive skill, and he shamelessly named it, A World Away. Don't worry. Shanks, you don't know my ability yet, I won't hurt you. Ryan said with a smile, I have always had an idea about life return. To learn life return, you need to perfectly control your own organs, so you can control your stomach to digest and restore yourself. So why can't you strengthen yourself through digestion? I also experimented with it at first, but it didn't strengthen my own energy after digestion. It wasn't until I worked with you to develop the world away from you that I discovered that life return, by controlling the energy digested by the stomach, is actually a kind of energy with restorative properties. It's difficult to use it to increase physical strength, but with your physical fitness, you first use the iron block to sharpen your fists, then use life return, and then use the iron block. Do you think the combination of the two energies can have a training effect? Sister Rhine, are you a devil? Barrett rolled his eyes. He had a lot of experience in sharpening his fists with iron blocks. He only dared to try it once a day, and he was always scared after each attempt. Now the method proposed by Rhine is even more outrageous. If he sharpens it in this way, it is not certain whether it will explode or not, but it will definitely not be pleasant. It is repairing while destroying, which means that the two energies meet. Even if it does not explode, he will be in pain all the time. Shanks, I've told you the method. It can speed up your growth. It's up to you whether you want to use it or not. I'll go see Luke first. Rhine said with a smile, then turned and walked to Luke, who was exercising on the other side. Why not give it a try? Hearing Rhine's words, Barrett couldn't help but be moved. Although Rhine's methods were all fantastic ideas, he had to admit that through Rhine's teaching, he did become much stronger. Damn, when a person dies, the bird faces upwards. It's just painful. What's so unbearable about that? Barrett thought for a moment, gritted his teeth, and walked directly to the barbecue position. After all, to practice this method, he needed a lot of meat. In about half an hour, Barrett roasted hundreds of pounds of meat and cut it all into pieces for easy consumption. Barrett ate the meat, trying to control his stomach to digest it, slowly getting used to the return of life. Not far away, Rhine watched Barrett's actions, narrowed his eyes, and whispered, "Boy, you got it for free. Just consider it as a reward for saving my life." Mom, what are you talking about? Next to Rhine, little Luke stopped exercising and looked at Rhine curiously. Luke, Mom didn't say anything, just that we will be leaving after a while, so she is a little happy. Rhine rubbed Luke's head and smiled gently, but deep in her eyes, there was always a strong reluctance. Luke looked at his mother's face, tears welling up in his eyes. He said blankly, "Mom, can we not leave? Can we live here?" Rhine was stunned when she heard this. She didn't expect her son to persuade her to stay. But seeing her son's face in tears, Rhine gently hugged Luke into her arms and said softly, "Luke, we have to go find Dad. We are a family and we can't let Dad live in pain." Mom, can't we just let Dad leave secretly? Luke hummed. He has his own beliefs. Rhine murmured, as if he was talking to Luke, or as if he was telling himself something. Then, Rhine didn't give Luke a chance to speak. He hugged Luke tightly and said seriously, "Luke, you must practice well. Only when you become stronger can you protect yourself, just like Big Brother Shanks." Big Brother. Luke looked at Rhine in confusion. Hee. Rhine burst into laughter, turned to look at Barrett, who was practicing, and whispered in Luke's ear, "Luke, let me tell you a secret. Shanks is actually only 14 years old." Ah, Luke looked at Barrett, who was already over 4 meters tall, with a look of deep shock on his little face. He had never imagined that the big brother whom he had always called uncle was actually only 14 years old. Shanks must have trained hard to grow so tall. Before Luke could come to his senses, Rhine's smiling voice once again reached his ears. "Mom, please guide me in training." Luke broke free from his mother's arms and bowed deeply to Rhine. I am very strict. Mom, I will try my best. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 10 Laboratory. 1 month, Nameless Island. Big Bear, I'm leaving now. Next time I come back, I'll take you for a walk in the center of the forest and let the gorillas barbecue for us. Barrett patted the giant bear gently and said goodbye before leaving. Although there was a smile on his face, there was deep reluctance in his eyes. After all, this was his first friend since he came to this world. Roar. The giant bear growled, frustration revealed on its face and tears glistening in its eyes. Over the past 5 years, the man and the beast had already established a deep friendship, and it also felt reluctant to see Barrett leave. Haha, Big Bear, I'm leaving now. I will definitely come to see you again in the future. Barrett turned around, tears in his eyes, and left laughing. He didn't say much goodbye. He believed that sooner or later he would come back and meet the giant bear again. Roar. The giant bear stood up straight and roared to the sky, like an ancient beast roaring. The huge sound waves shook the mountains and forests. It waved its big claws vigorously, saying goodbye to Barrett. Ha ha ha. I will return. Barrett didn't look back. He laughed and raised his right hand, waving it vigorously, and slowly disappeared in front of the giant bear. When Ryan and his son saw Barrett returning to the beach, they hurried over with worry on their faces. After all, the giant bear's roar had spread throughout the entire island. Shanks, are you okay? Ryan asked worriedly. Luke looked at Barrett with the same worry, his little face looking very nervous. Sister Ryan, I'm fine. The roar just now was made by my friend. He was saying goodbye to me. Barrett rubbed Luke's head and chuckled. Well, brother Shanks, you are awesome. When Luke heard Barrett's words, his eyes widened with envy. The roar just now almost scared him silly. Ha ha ha. Little Luke, as long as you practice hard, you can make such powerful friends in the future. Barrett rubbed Luke's head and laughed. Luke nodded heavily. Ryan on the side pursed her lips and watched with a smile. Although she and Barrett had not known each other for a long time, she benefited a lot every time she talked with Barrett. After many conversations, she also understood Barrett well and did not mind her son being close to Barrett. After the three of them chatted for a while, Barrett said, Sister Ryan, let's go. Ryan nodded and pulled Luke and Barrett onto a small boat. The boat was not big, similar to the fishing boats Barrett had seen in his previous life. It took Barrett more than half a year to make it. He also did a lot of carpentry work for it. After countless failures, he finally succeeded. In the clear sky, a small boat is sailing at a very fast speed in the sea. Boom. At this moment, there was a loud noise in the sky, and the clear sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds, and the sky suddenly became gloomy. Shanks, it's a hurricane. We have to get out of here as soon as possible, or the ship will be destroyed. At the same time, Ryan's anxious voice sounded on the boat. I understand, Sister Ryan, hold on tight. Looking at the inky black sky, Barrett knew the seriousness of the situation. Without hesitation, he jumped into the sea with a splash, swam to the bottom of the boat, lifted the boat up, and took off into the air. Fly, fly. On the small boat, Luke held his mother tightly with one hand and held the boat tightly with the other. Feeling the fluctuations in the air, he looked up at the sky with surprise in his eyes. Call out. Barrett carried the boat and used the world away with all his strength in the sky, drawing a beautiful arc and rushing out more than 10 kilometers in just a few minutes. Call. However, at this moment, a strong wind suddenly arose, and Barrett's movements were seriously affected, and his speed slowed down a lot. Boom. Immediately afterwards, the hurricane created waves dozens of meters high, as if it was the end of the world and was about to overturn the heaven and earth. Roar. Seeing this, Barrett roared and mobilized all his strength to break the speed limit. The sound of gas explosions continued to ring in the sky. But human power is limited, and Barrett's extreme outburst not only caused his physical strength to quickly run out, but also almost made his legs lose consciousness, and huge waves hit. Bang! The huge waves hit the boat heavily. Puff! Barrett spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted with a dizzy head. Cough cough. After an unknown amount of time, Barrett woke up, opened his eyes dazedly, and found himself in a glass machine, naked, with tubes inserted all over his body. Well, Barrett tried hard and was shocked to find that he had no strength left in his body. He looked around and found that not far from him, Ryan and Luke were also trapped in a glass device, but they were not awake and had their eyes tightly closed. Call. Where am I? Barrett exhaled, his face full of confusion. Dong dong. Just then, footsteps were heard. Barrett quickly closed his eyes and pretended to be asleep. Judging from his current condition, he must have been captured by someone and was being used as a test subject. Doctor, Kaido has been captured and will be delivered tomorrow. Understood. Then, a conversation came into Barrett's ears. Hearing the brief conversation, Barrett's heart was shocked. Who is Kaido? He is one of the 4 emperors in the One Piece world and is known as the strongest creature in the world. He is also the cute one in the hearts of the majority of One Piece fans. With one stick, he is Gobaken, and another stick, Go Ryuo. He is called the strongest teacher Kai by the majority of One Piece fans. Although Kaido is not as strong as he was later, he is not someone that ordinary people can provoke, let alone catch. After thinking about it, Barrett had some guesses in his mind. Judging from the current time period and the current environment, this should be a laboratory somewhere in the world government. After all, only the world government has the ability to capture Kaido and conduct experiments. Damn it, I'm going to get out of here. If I don't take revenge, I'll write my name backwards. Barrett's eyes flashed coldly and his heart was burning with anger. He never expected that one day he would be used as a test subject and be used for human experiments. But now he had not a single bit of strength in his body and was unable to resist at all. The tubes in his body kept drawing his blood and transfusing other unknown liquids to keep him alive. The two seemed to be in some kind of balance, making him powerless but not dying. I need to recover some strength first. Barrett thought to himself, closed his eyes and slowly controlled himself according to the way life was returning. After a long time, he slowly regained some strength. After peace was restored in the laboratory, he secretly removed two blood-drawing tubes to disrupt the balance between the two. The special liquid seemed to be specially designed to provide nutrition to humans and contained a large amount of vitality. In just a short while, Barrett recovered a lot of physical strength. However, he did not act rashly, but used a special liquid to recover slowly. The most important thing was that he found that this special liquid was extremely beneficial to his body. After only absorbing it for a short while, he found that his physical fitness was slowly improving. Barrett would naturally not miss such a good opportunity, so he pretended to be a quail and secretly improved himself. Roar. I don't know how long it took, but accompanied by a huge roar, there was a loud bang, and the whole laboratory was shaken by a violent noise. Go and support. Kaido has broken free. Quote. At the same time, there was a flurry of footsteps and nervous and rapid shouts outside. Hearing the noise outside, Barrett suddenly opened his eyes, knowing that a great opportunity had come. He tore off the blood-drawing tube on his body, leaving only the tube with the strange liquid. After he had absorbed a large amount of the special liquid with all his strength, he tore off the tube. Bang! Then, he exerted all his strength to shatter the glass container. Drop. As Barrett shattered the container, an alarm immediately sounded in the laboratory. Hurry up, there's an accident in the lab. At the same time, a loud shout was heard outside the laboratory. Tread. Then, there was a chaotic sound of footsteps. Barrett's eyes were cold as he swayed over to the container containing Ryan and Luke. He punched the container twice, breaking it into pieces, and then pulled off the tubes used to draw blood from the two men. However, Luke was still young after all, and he did not have Barrett's abnormal physique. His body became extremely weak, and his vitality seemed extremely weak. Bang! Barrett did not dare to delay. He smashed the container near Luke, pulled out the experimental subject's nutrition tube and inserted it into Luke. After about a minute, Luke's life breath gradually became stronger, and Barrett secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Luke. At the same time, the unconscious Ryan woke up and hugged Luke in his arms regardless of his naked body. Barrett saw it and quickly turned his back to the mother and son and said, Sister Ryan, Luke is fine. You should recover as soon as possible. I will go get two clothes first. Barrett said, and used razor to leave quickly. Knowing that Luke was fine, Ryan realized his own condition and his cheeks flushed red. However, he knew the situation was critical and did not care about anything else and quickly recovered. Chapter 11 Abel. Not long after, Barrett found some white cloths, wrapped himself with one, and quickly ran back to Ryan and his son. He handed the cloth to Ryan with his back to her. Sister Ryan, wrap yourself up quickly. While there is chaos outside, I will take you away. Ryan knew that this was not the time to be shy, so he nodded with a red face, took the white cloth and quickly wrapped his body around it, and by the way, he pulled out the tubes from Luke's body, and used the white cloth to wrap Luke around himself and tie him up tightly. Boom boom. As soon as Ryan finished, the door of the laboratory was opened and countless Navy soldiers rushed into the laboratory. Kill them quickly. What's happening here must not be exposed. Seeing Barrett and the other two, a naval officer shouted. Humph. Barrett snorted coldly, took a step forward and stood in front of Ryan and his son, looking coldly at the group of Navy men. His eyes fixed and a domineering aura emanated from him. Boom. The domineering color was activated, and powerful invisible energy instantly swept through the entire laboratory. The charging naval soldiers were hit by powerful mental force, and the domineering will destroyed their will. In an instant, a large number of soldiers could not withstand the violent impact, rolled their eyes and fainted. Hegemonic color. Behind Barrett, Ryan looked incredulous. She didn't expect Barrett to have the qualifications of a king. How is it possible? The officer standing in the front was gasping for breath, his face filled with horror. He couldn't understand why any random experiment subject in the laboratory would have the domineering color. Call out. But Barrett didn't give him a chance to think. He dodged and pierced the naval officer's throat with a finger. Ho ho. The naval officer covered his throat with his hands, his face full of disbelief. He never expected that one day he would be killed by a test subject. Well, seeing Barrett decisively kill the naval officer, Ryan was stunned. He covered his mouth with his hands, his eyes wide open, and his face was full of disbelief. Barrett's eyes were cold, he didn't even look at the naval officer, he just turned to Ryan and said, "Sister Ryan, we should go now." Oh. Ryan looked at the dead sailor with a little sadness, without much sympathy. She didn't expect that she would encounter the darkness that Barrett talked about so soon, and she would experience it personally. At this moment, the faith in her heart completely collapsed. Barrett glanced at Ryan, didn't say much, and quickly ran out of the laboratory. Seeing Barrett leave, Ryan naturally didn't dare to stay for too long, and quickly followed Barrett out of the laboratory. The laboratory was in a cave, which was made entirely of steel with complicated roads. Barrett and Ryan didn't know the way, so they avoided the Navy all the way and came to an empty room. Seeing the Navy uniforms in the room, Barrett said, "Sister Ryan, let's change into Navy uniforms first so that it will be more convenient for us to do things." Ryan nodded, quickly found a Navy lieutenant's uniform that suited him and put it on. He tied Luke to his back with a white cloth, and covered Luke with a cloak, and suddenly became heroic. Barrett was in a dilemma. He was almost 4 meters tall and it was difficult to find suitable officer uniform. He could only find a similar marine uniform to put on. His whole body was stretched tight, and the muscles on his upper body were all bulging out. His pants became cropped pants and were stuck tightly. With his helpless face, he looked extremely funny. Puff. Seeing Barrett's expression, Ryan laughed out loud. "Sister Ryan, let's leave here first. You can laugh as much as you want later." Barrett was helpless, but he also admired the nerves of the people in this world who could laugh even before they were out of danger. Hearing Barrett's words, Ryan blushed slightly and felt a little embarrassed. Now was not the time to laugh. He then asked, "Then Shanks, what should we do now?" "Sister Ryan, you must have been a naval officer before, right?" Barrett asked. Ryan nodded. "That's good. Just show your authority as an officer and have someone take us out." Barrett said with a smile. "Call." Ryan exhaled, and his temperament suddenly changed slightly, just like a real naval officer. Boom. However, at this moment, after a loud bang, there was a violent shaking in the room. Boom. Then there was another loud noise, and cracks appeared on the ground in the room. "Sister Ryan, run." Barrett was shocked. He quickly steadied himself, grabbed Ryan and ran out of the room quickly. At this time, the entire laboratory was in chaos, and countless naval researchers ran out for their lives. Barrett and the other man didn't dare to just follow, so they could only run in other directions. After they reached a room and there were no more Navy around, they slowly slowed down their pace. "Ah, damn world government, let me out." Suddenly, a shout was heard and Barrett and the other man stopped abruptly. "Shanks, I think I heard someone's voice." Ryan looked at Barrett and said uncertainly. "I heard it too." Barrett nodded. "Let's go over and take a look. Maybe he knows how to get out." Ryan nodded in agreement. As they spoke, the two of them walked towards the sound, and as they got closer, the sound became clearer and clearer, but the temperature also became higher and higher. Damn world government, Soon the two came to an iron gate, and the cursing became clearer, but the temperature also rose more than 10 times. Ryan stopped at a long distance, and only Barrett relied on his strong physique to get close, but it also made him sweat profusely. "Is there anyone inside?" Barrett asked loudly, standing outside the iron gate. There was a sound of surprise from inside the iron gate, followed by a curse, "You running dog of the world government, kill me if you dare. I'm not from the world government. I was captured, but there was a riot here and I escaped." Barrett responded. "You are really not a running dog of the world government." The voice inside the iron gate was full of disbelief and endless doubts. "No." Barrett said, "Do you know the way here?" If you do, I can let you out. I know him. Let me out now and I'll take you out. There was silence for a moment inside the iron gate, and then the decision was made. Remember to keep your word. Barrett exerted force on his feet and used the storm kick towards the iron gate. An arc-shaped slash of more than 2 meters hit the iron gate heavily. With a bang, a white mark was left on the iron gate, but it was not affected at all. What kind of metal is this? Barrett exclaimed, looking incredulous. With his current strength, the steel gate could be broken with just a few kicks, but this iron gate was obviously not made of steel. Big brother outside, didn't you notice that there is a device next to the iron gate? If you pull it down, the iron gate will open, right? Feeling the violent impact, the man at the iron gate spoke again, his voice full of helplessness. Ah! Barrett was stunned. He looked outside the door and saw that there was indeed a joystick device. He touched his nose awkwardly, walked to the joystick, held it with one hand, and pulled it hard. Click! With a rumbling sound, the iron gate was opened, and a hot breath came. The temperature outside the iron gate rose more than 10 times again. Barrett could not bear it anymore and retreated more than 10 meters before stopping and looking inside the iron gate. Inside the iron gate was a closed room, which was full of flames and a bright red color. Then a weak young man walked out of the iron gate. The boy was thin, about 1.78 meters tall, with a head full of white hair, a strange pattern on his left eye, a pair of black wings on his back, and a ball of red flame burning on his back. The boy looked extremely handsome, and looked to be only about 12 or 13 years old. Lunalia, Abel, Jin. Looking at the young man walking out of the flames, Barrett couldn't help but think of one of the 3 disasters in the original work, the fire disaster Jin. Jin's original name was Abel, and he was from the Lunalia tribe. The Lunalia people are born with the ability to control fire. They are a tribe of gods from 800 years ago. They are extremely powerful and are regarded as a thorn in the eyes of the celestial dragons. They are slaughtered in large numbers. A reward of 100 million belly is offered for anyone who finds their whereabouts. The long-term pursuit caused the population of the Lunalia tribe to decline rapidly, and Abel became the last bloodline of Lunalia. It was mentioned in the original work that Abel was rescued by Kaido when he was a teenager. Through conversations with Kaido, he felt that Kaido could overthrow the celestial dragons, so he chose to follow Kaido and finally became one of the famous 3 calamities, the Flame Calamity Jinx. You're a Marine. When the boy saw Barrett in Navy uniform, his brown-red pupils shrank and there was a hint of fear on his face. Idiot, if I were a Navy, why would I save you and ask you for directions? Do you think everyone likes to be naked like you? Barrett glared at Abel unhappily. Abel was stunned when he heard this, and quickly covered his bird. His face quickly turned red, and he said shyly, can you give me a piece of clothing? Hiss. Barrett didn't say much and tore off his clothes and threw them to Abel. Cover your lower body first, we'll talk about it when we get out. Thank you. Abel tied his lower body with tattered clothes and walked quickly towards Barrett. Chapter 12 Escape and Ascend to Heaven. Do you know where the treasure house of this base is? They took something from me. Seeing Abel coming over, Barrett spoke. Zhui and the devil fruit were all taken away, so he naturally wanted to get them back. Besides, Kaido was making trouble outside and there was no one in this base. He would be sorry if he didn't take the opportunity to make some money. I'm not sure if that's the place, aren't you in a hurry to get out? Abel frowned and looked at Barrett in confusion. No hurry. Barrett chuckled. Take me there first. I have a companion outside. Don't be surprised when you see me. Abel nodded and followed Barrett. Soon Barrett reunited with Rhine. Abel hid behind Barrett, not daring to show his face. Shanks, everything in front of us has collapsed. We can't get out now. Rhine didn't pay much attention to Abel. He looked very anxious and his tone was full of worry. Boy, can we still go out now? Barrett looked at the blocked road, frowned, and looked back at Abel. He didn't expect that the road would be blocked in the blink of an eye. Behind Barrett, Abel half penetrated his head and looked ahead, frowning and saying, let's go to the treasury first. I'll check out other exits. Then you lead the way. Barrett nodded, pulled Abel to the front and asked him to lead the way. Abel glared at Barrett, but said nothing more and looked around carefully. Rhine was surprised when he saw the appearance of Abel's monster. You guys come with me. Abel ignored Rhine. He had seen too many people with the same look on his face. After looking around, he walked towards a road. Sister Rhine is gone. Barrett didn't say much, patted Rhine, and followed Abel. Rhine came to his senses and quickly caught up with the two. Abel took Barrett and Rhine and turned left and right, moving around inside, and soon stopped at the door of a room. This should be the treasure house, Abel said as he reached out and felt around a few times. After finding a pull ring, he pulled it hard and the iron door opened with a click. How do you know how to open the door? Barrett looked at Abel in surprise. He didn't expect that a prisoner was so familiar with this place. I've been locked up here for a while, and I've been dragged around a lot, so I'm familiar with this place. Abel said it very calmly, but the resentment in his eyes could not be wiped away. We can talk after we get out. Barrett patted Abel on the shoulder and strode into the room. Abel was stunned for a moment. He had a feeling that Barrett seemed to know about him. Call. Abel exhaled and followed him into the room. Rhine stood outside the room and looked around vigilantly. The room that Abel brought to was indeed a treasure trove. It not only contained a large amount of seastone and gold, but also 3 boxes. 2 of them were Barrett's own boxes, and the last one was a white box only a dozen centimeters in size. Barrett quickly stepped forward and opened the devil fruit box. He found that the devil fruit was still inside and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then he curiously opened the white box next to it, and found a strange big banana inside. It was so eye-catching that it was worth it. I didn't expect there would be an extra benefit. Barrett quickly closed the box, picked up a chain in the warehouse, strung the 2 boxes together, and tied them tightly to himself. Finally, he opened Zhi's box, looked at the cold and shining Zhi, and whispered softly, "Old friend, I need your help next." After saying that, Barrett stretched out his hand and grabbed Che. With a clang sound, a sound of sword sounds rang out in Zhi. Barrett's domineering color was activated, and the things in the room were instantly blown away. The Huang, lust. Abel, who was in the room, was horrified. He didn't expect that someone he just met casually could have the domineering haki and was so powerful. Perhaps. Feeling Barrett's domineering color and looking at Barrett's figure, Abel couldn't help but feel that Barrett was getting taller and taller, and a thought arose in his mind. Rhine outside the door naturally also felt Barrett's domineering aura, and thought something had happened. She leaned over to look at Barrett who was holding Zhi, and she instantly understood. Barrett had told her about Zhi, and she knew that Zhi was a magic sword. Now that Barrett had held it, she was powerless and could only look at Barrett worriedly. Be quiet. Barrett's eyes flashed red, a black air current surged above his head, and his whole body exuded an extremely domineering aura. Zhi seemed to feel some kind of pressure. With 2 crisp sounds of clang, clang, his sword restrained its edge and became much calmer. Ha ha ha. Barrett laughed out loud. His domineering haki was even stronger than before, as if he was going to overturn the world. Even more domineering. Feeling Barrett's even more powerful domineering color, Abel tried his best to resist, his eyes full of disbelief. After a while, Barrett stopped releasing his conqueror's haki, casually got some gold, put it on his trouser legs, and walked to Abel who had fallen to the ground with Zhi in his arms and asked, "Kid, where do we go out now?" Call. Abel took a breath and pointed to the window in the room and said, "See there. That window is real. You can see the outside world from it. Is there no other way?" Barrett looked inside the room and asked with a frown. "No, I looked everywhere when we came here just now. All the exits have collapsed and the roads are completely blocked. We can only get out by breaking through there." Abel looked gloomy, with a hint of unwillingness in his eyes. "Break there." Barrett took a few steps forward and looked outside through the fist-sized window. It was a little dark outside, but a ray of light had risen above the sea level. It was the time when day and night changed. The sun rises and the moon sets. Is this the darkest time of the day? Barrett said to himself. He looked out the window with a red light flashing in his eyes. Zhi seemed to sense Barrett's intention, and with the sound of clang, clang, of the knife, Barrett's momentum soared, and a sharp aura rushed through the room. Feeling Barrett's special aura, Abel quickly retreated to the door. Looking at Barrett's figure, his eyes burst into a different kind of brilliance. He had a feeling that Barrett could break this cage and let him look up at the sky again. "You gave me hope, but you also made me experience despair. I came back from hell, but you want me to go back again. That's it. Then I will break everything, break the shackles on my body, and tear this cage apart. Barrett murmured, slowly stepped back a few steps, and raised the long sword in his hand. We are born free, who dares to look down on us? Barrett's voice grew louder and louder until he roared, and his aura became even more powerful. Breaking the military. Barrett's aura was gathered together, and Zhui chopped down from top to bottom with force. A black blade light carrying unparalleled momentum slammed towards the window. With a loud bang, the iron wall was blasted open, revealing a big hole. Barrett looked at the rising sun and the gradually brightening sky, gasping for breath, with a smile on his lips. Abel and Ryan stared at Barrett blankly. As they stared, Abel's eyes slowly filled with tears. The long-lost blue sky made him feel the breath of freedom. We are born free, who dares to look down on us? Abel murmured, looking at Barrett's figure in a trance. These words seemed to pierce his heart. After a short rest, Barrett put away Zhui and put it on his waist, then turned to the two and said, we should go. Abel and Ryan came to their senses and quickly ran to bar. They looked outside and saw that they were on the cliff. Abel urgently suggested, should we climb down now? Barrett ignored him. In front of Abel's astonished eyes, he grabbed one with each hand, leapt into the air, and with a whoosh, a shadow passed through the air. Hey, you'll die if you do this. In midair, he felt himself falling at a very high speed. The air currents in the air kept brushing past his ears. Abel shouted in fear, his body shaking uncontrollably. He did not have the domineering aura of the future Yan Zai at all. Barrett even suspected that he had recognized the wrong person, but he didn't care. He used his strength to make the world go round and reach the beach in an instant. As soon as Ryan landed, he glanced at Abel, who was a little dazed, and turned to look for the boat. Hey, wake up. We need to find a boat to leave here first. Barrett looked at Abel, who looked a little dazed, and patted his face unhappily. Couldn't you have told me in advance? Abel came back to his senses and looked at Barrett with a very resentful expression. Brother, if you have so much time, you might as well find a ship and leave now. Barrett immediately retorted and turned to look for a ship. The place where they landed was safe. There was no fighting here, but there were no ships either. Abel immediately realized that the most important thing now was not these trivial matters, but to leave here. Not long after, Ryan found a small boat. The three of them quickly boarded the boat and rowed away quickly. Chapter 13 Rebirth from the Ashes. On the island, in the experimental base. Kaido carried a mace and walked around the base unscrupulously. When he encountered anyone blocking his way, he would just blast them away with his mace and would not give way at all. However, when he arrived at the treasury and saw the broken iron wall, he exploded and roared domineeringly, who the hell is taking advantage of me? Boom! A giant dragon flew across the sky, spewing a scorching breath towards the island, and a huge energy ball emitting a breath of destruction smashed into the laboratory. Boom kaka! The laboratory was destroyed, the island shook, and cries and shouts for help resounded through the sky. After seeing the laboratory destroyed, the giant dragon above the island floated up contentedly, and slowly disappeared into the horizon. At the same time, the three Barretts who escaped were rowing with all their might, but the shock wave caused by the shaking of the island still created a huge wave. This is a joke. Looking at the huge waves, Abel's face turned green. He didn't expect that he had just escaped death, but he would have to experience life and death again. Ryan said nothing. He tightened his grip on Luke's back and held onto the edge of the boat tightly. However, his trembling body could not stop the fear in his heart. Hold on tight. Barrett looked at the huge waves that were getting closer and closer, his face looking a little grim, but fortunately there was no violent storm this time, and the boat was not a big ship, so he jumped into the water decisively, exerted all his strength to lift the boat into the air, and avoided the huge waves at a high speed. Fortunately, this was not a natural phenomenon. Although Barrett tried his best, he still managed to avoid the waves. However, he fell into a coma as soon as he returned to the boat. He was overdrawn throughout the day. As night fell, the roars of animals could be heard one after another in the woods, and an enticing fragrance wafted into Barrett's nose. Hiss, it hurts. Barrett rubbed his head and slowly opened his eyes. A piece of unknown animal meat was roasting on a blazing bonfire. Abel, Ryan, and Luke, who had woken up at some point, were all silently gnawing on the meat with gloomy expressions, and they didn't notice that Barrett had woken up at all. Cough cough. Looking at the expressions of the few people, Barrett coughed twice, grabbed the sizzling and greasy roasted meat and started eating it in big mouthfuls. The three of them seemed to come back to their senses. Looking at Barrett eating meat with big mouthfuls, they seemed to have found their backbone and couldn't help but smile. Brother Shanks. Luke seemed very excited to see Barrett awake. Woohoo! Little Luke, you're awake. Barrett swallowed a mouthful of meat and looked at Luke with a smile. Luke nodded happily, watching Barrett eat the meat with big mouthfuls. He felt the meat in his hand had taste again and started to swallow it with big mouthfuls. Barrett looked at Luke and smiled. He didn't talk to Luke anymore. Instead, he turned to look at Abel and said while eating meat, I know your situation. Let's talk alone later. Abel nodded and buried his head in eating the meat. Then, Barrett asked Ryan, Sister Ryan, do you know where we are now? I don't know. We checked when we first arrived on the island. There is no one living on this island, only wild beasts. Ryan shook his head, looking a little gloomy. How many days was I in a coma? Barrett continued to ask. 3 days. Ryan stretched out his finger and gestured. 3 days. Have you found any inhabited islands or ports along the way? Barrett continued to ask. It seems there is one, but when I was about to go to the island, he stopped me. Ryan frowned and pointed at Abel, with a hint of dissatisfaction in his tone. When Abel heard Ryan's words, his body stiffened and he buried his head deeper, exuding a feeling of loss. Sister Ryan, he was right to stop you from going to the island, because no matter if it was you or him, once you went to the island, it would immediately attract people's attention and attract the Navy and the world government. Barrett glanced at Ryan indifferently. He didn't expect that after going through so much, this woman was still so naive. He wondered if she was just a dead person in the eyes of the Navy and the world government. Ryan was stunned when she heard this. After Barrett's reminder, she also figured out the key point. She was indeed not suitable to appear in front of people, and she became silent. However, Barrett's words startled Abel, who was standing beside him. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Ryan. No matter how stupid he was, he understood that the woman next to him was just like him, someone who could not appear in public. Sister Ryan, do you remember how far that island is from us? Barrett ignored the two of them and spoke while eating meat, appearing extremely calm. It's not far from us. We can get there in half a day by using a small wooden boat. Ryan made a rough estimate. Yeah. Barrett nodded. That's great. Let's go there tomorrow and finish what we promised you. Ryan nodded with a complicated expression, and without further asking, he quietly picked up the meat and continued to eat. For a moment, everyone fell into silence again. Barrett didn't say much, he just buried his head in eating the beast meat, using his life to quickly digest it and restore himself to his peak condition as soon as possible. Half an hour later, Ryan held Luke in his arms and fell asleep. Barrett got up, patted Abel, who was lost in thought, and walked into the forest. Abel was stunned for a moment, then stood up and quickly followed Barrett. The two walked one after the other, and no one spoke along the way. Until they were far away from the campfire, Barrett suddenly stopped and said, Lunalia. How do you know? Upon hearing the word Lunalia, Abel's pupils shrank sharply and his whole body trembled continuously. He was very shocked. I know your goal. It just so happens that my goal does not conflict with yours. It's just that I am still weak now and am accumulating strength. Are you willing to follow me in the future? Barrett's tone was calm, but there was a hint of arrogance in his words, which made people feel a little convinced. I have no goals, I just want to live. Abel was silent, the fire in his eyes flickered, and finally he shook his head. Don't you want to go back and take a look at the Red Earth continent? Have you forgotten the hatred of generations? Barrett spoke softly, but to Abel it sounded like a bomb, hitting his heart continuously and causing his body to tremble involuntarily. Who are you and why do you know all this? Abel's voice was filled with fear, and he was obviously frightened. You don't need to care who I am. You just need to know that we are on the same path. One day in the future, I will take you to that land openly. Barrett looked directly at Abel and said word by word, or, I will make that continent vanish into thin air and disappear in the long river of history. So, tell me what you decide. Barrett stared at Abel with captivating eyes and spoke in such a domineering tone that Abel felt dazed. After a long while, Abel knelt on one knee and looked at Barrett firmly. Abel greets the boss. From today on, I will help you wholeheartedly and wait for you to take me to annihilate that land. Don't worry. I won't let you down. Seeing Abel's loyalty, Barrett couldn't suppress the joy in his heart. After all, Flame's strength is second to none in One Piece, and the most important thing is that he is extremely loyal. Once he recognizes his master, he will hardly betray him. In the original work, there were a large number of traitors under Kaido, but only Flame Scare always stood with Kaido. This is why Barrett wanted to subdue Abel so much. Barrett helped Abel up and whispered, "My real name is Douglas Barrett, but for now you have to call me Shanks." Abel didn't ask any more questions, but just nodded quietly. Then, Barrett took out 3 devil fruits and pointed at the 2 devil fruits he got first and said, "I have encountered these 2 before, and I don't know what kind of fruit they are. The other one I brought out from the laboratory, and I don't know what kind it is, but it looks like it should be an animal, but I don't know what kind of animal it is. Do you want to choose one now and try your luck, or wait until you are sure before choosing?" When Abel saw Barrett take out 3 devil fruits, his heart was shocked. Everyone knew how precious the devil fruits were. He didn't expect that Barrett would value him so much. He was deeply moved. After careful observation, Abel discovered that the scarlet devil fruit seemed to be calling him and had infinite attraction. He picked it up involuntarily and took a bite. In an instant, his face twisted into a piece. What about the taste? Barrett looked at Abel curiously. When he read the original work, he was very curious about the taste of the devil fruit. The original work only said that it was unpalatable, but no one discussed to what extent. Now that I see the person involved, I naturally want to know and dig deeper. It tastes terrible. Abel frowned. Soon, Abel's body changed rapidly. First, the black wings on his back quickly expanded and turned into red wings, burning with red flames, but with a touch of pure white in the middle. Call out. A moment later, Abel transformed into a giant bird and suddenly flew across the sky, instantly dyeing half of the sky red. The giant bird was scarlet in color, with a chicken head, a snake neck, and colorful tail feathers. Its body was burning with red flames, and it held its head high in the sky, looking extremely noble. Nima, I regret it. Barrett looked up at the sky, his face full of pain and regret. Even if he was stupid, he understood at this moment that what Abel had eaten was the rarest mythical beast species of the devil fruit, and it might also be the legendary divine bird, the phoenix. Thank you, boss. After a moment, Abel regained his human form and bowed to Barrett. At this moment, the red wings on his back disappeared, returning to his original state, except that his height increased a lot in an instant, and a red rune inexplicably appeared on his forehead. The whole person exuded a noble air and his appearance became more handsome. Nima, why didn't I try it in advance? Barrett was filled with envy, jealousy and hatred, and he regretted it so much. This fruit was not only a mythical beast species, but most importantly, it had the effect of beautifying the face. If he ate it, with his rough appearance, he could at least become a male god. Brother, what is the power of this fruit? Barrett suppressed the shock in his heart and asked sourly. Bird fruit, mythical beast type, Suzaku form. Abel grinned, his face full of satisfaction and his heart also filled with deep emotion. He did not expect that Barrett would actually give him such a precious fruit. Perhaps the name Abel is no longer suitable for you. You have escaped from hell and been reborn. From this moment on, you should stand in the sky and be the high and mighty king of the sky. Use the anger in your heart to ignite the sky and burn the high and mighty gods. From now on, your name will be Jin. Hearing that it was the 4 symbols vermilion bird, Barrett's heart ached and he wanted to cry. He wanted to slap himself hard, but the person had been eaten, and there was nothing he could do. He could only silently suppress the regret in his heart, patted Abel in a pretentious manner, and walked out of the forest with a domineering tone. Burn the sky. Don't worry. Jin will do it. Abel looked at Barrett who was slowly going away, a charming smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he instantly accepted his new name. Chapter 14 Planning. The next day, unnamed island. The sun is shining brightly and the heat is rising. None of you are suitable to go to the island. I will go to the island alone to get information. You wait for me here. If you see someone coming, try to avoid them. A small boat was anchored in a secluded place beside the island. Ryan and the other two sat quietly beside Barrett, listening to his story. The three nodded in agreement. After Barrett finished speaking, he leapt up and flew through the air. In an instant, he stepped onto the island and landed in an uninhabited place. After tidying up casually, he walked towards the small town on the island with his upper body naked and his long hair draped over his shoulders. Soon, after asking around, Barrett learned that they were in the first half of the Grand Line. The island was called Yucca Island, close to Alabasta. However, since Yucca Island was relatively remote, the newspaper seagulls rarely came, and there was very little information that could be obtained. Barrett didn't ask too much. He used the gold coins he had taken from the laboratory treasury to buy a sea chart, some clothes and a few iron masks, then left in a hurry. When the three saw Barrett return to the boat, they immediately surrounded him. "Shanks, have you found out anything?" Ryan said anxiously, with anticipation in his eyes. "Sister Ryan, let's leave here first." As he spoke, Barrett used the oars to support the stone wall and pushed hard. The boat quickly left the island. After rowing for a distance, Barrett put down the oars, took out the sea chart and handed it to Ryan. "Sister Ryan, this is the sea chart. We are now in the waters of Alabasta. Take a look at the sea chart. We will go directly to Alabasta. This island is basically peaceful and it is difficult to get any news." Barrett took out the clothes and masks he bought and gave them to the group. "Here are the clothes and masks I bought. Let's find an uninhabited island, change clothes, get some food, and then head directly to Alabasta." Before anyone could reply, Barrett looked straight at Ryan and asked in a serious tone, "Sister Ryan, have you made up your mind? I am not completely sure about this matter. After all, the Navy is very powerful. Once you are exposed, your life and death will be in jeopardy with Admiral Zephyr." Jin, who was standing aside, widened his eyes after hearing Barrett's words, and looked at Ryan with shock. He didn't expect that Ryan was actually related to the Admiral of the Navy. What surprised him even more was that his captain seemed to be planning something extraordinary. For a moment, his eyes flickered and he was even a little excited. When Luke heard that his mother might die, he looked at Ryan with tears in his eyes, his little face full of reluctance. Hearing this, Ryan seemed a little silent. After a while, Ryan hugged Luke, looked at Barrett and said softly, "Shanks, can I know your real name?" "Hey." After a long moment, Barrett sighed, "Douglas Barrett." "Barrett, can I ask you a favor?" Ryan looked at Barrett and continued to speak, with a hint of request in his tone. "You said." Barrett was silent for a moment and nodded slightly. "If it's a bad outcome, I hope you can help me take care of Luke." Ryan suddenly knelt on his knees and bowed to Barrett. "Mother." After going through several things, Luke had matured a lot mentally. Seeing his mother was like entrusting his last affairs to her, he could no longer hold back his tears and cry. Jin, who was standing aside, had red eyes and turned his head away. After all, this kind of thing is most likely to touch people's hearts. Barrett looked at Ryan, and his heart was filled with shock. The greatness of maternal love was fully demonstrated at this moment. He also felt a little jealous and envious of Zephyr. Ryan might not be very beautiful, but her love for Zephyr alone was enough to move people. What more can a husband ask for when his wife is like this? Barrett sighed, helped Ryan up, and solemnly promised, "This is a mother's request. I agree to it." "Thank you." Ryan thanked him gratefully, then pulled the crying Luke into his arms and comforted him softly. "Luke, if Mom is gone, you must listen to Brother Barrett in the future." "Mother." Luke cried. "Luke." Ryan raised his voice with a hint of severity, then hugged Luke tightly and said gently, "Son, I can't let your father live in confusion. If I don't go, something bad will happen to him sooner or later, so you have to understand your mother." Woohoo. Perhaps because he was too young, Luke didn't know what to say in rebuttal and could only throw himself into Ryan's arms and cry loudly. Barrett and Jin watched and watched, their eyes becoming a little moist. They walked to the boat together and waited quietly. After a long time, Luke was tired of crying and fell asleep in Ryan's arms. Ryan gently called to Barrett, "Barrett, can you come over here?" Barrett looked back at Ryan, then stood up and walked over. "Barrett, I want to hear your solution." Ryan spoke very quietly, as if afraid of waking Luke. "Sister Ryan, I want to ask if you have any friends in the news industry. Who can do live broadcasts?" Barrett asked. The communications industry in this world is actually very developed, but only the world government and the Navy know how to use public opinion. The next 2 times they used it were backfired. Roger used it to start the pirate era, and the War of Marineford allowed Whitebeard to make the final move, which completely caused the world to go crazy. Only then did the Navy and the world government gradually reduce live broadcasts. But now, the world government and the Navy are still reaping the benefits, but there is no full network live broadcast. Barrett also wants to make good use of this incident and start the world's first live broadcast to help this world. I don't know them. I'm at the Navy headquarters and usually hang out in the family quarters. There are only a few people I'm familiar with. Ryan shook his head. Forget it, let's talk about it in Alabasta. If we are going to do it, we should do it thoroughly. I don't want Luke to lose his parents at such a young age. Barrett raised his eyebrows. Although he had expected this, he still felt a little disappointed. He could only settle for the second best and think of other solutions. Barrett, thank you for your help. Ryan bowed slightly, an apologetic look on his face. It's okay. Barrett waved his hand and handed the nautical chart to Ryan. Sister Ryan, please take a look at the chart first and determine the route. We can plan everything slowly after we arrive in Alabasta. Ryan took the nautical chart and looked at it carefully. He quickly determined the route to Alabasta. The 2 strong laborers, Barrett and Jin, became busy again. Under the rowing of the 2 superhumans, the boat was like an arrow from a bow, and was not inferior to some large ships. 4 days later, the group of 4 arrived in Alabasta, but in order not to attract attention, the 4 chose to settle on an uninhabited island away from Alabasta. That night, the 4 of them lit a bonfire and sat around it. On the hot bonfire, a large piece of wild boar meat was roasted and sizzling with oil. Barrett cut a few pieces with a knife, handed them to the 3 people, and said, Sister Ryan, Jin, I will leave alone tomorrow to explore the way first. You wait for me on this island. Boss, how about I follow you? Jin put down the piece of meat and looked straight at Barrett with a burning gaze. Through the conversation along the way, he knew that Barrett's plan this time was to cause the Navy to lose a general. For him who had a grudge against the Navy, it would be very uncomfortable if he could not participate. No. Barrett shook his head. You have been rewarded. The most important thing now is to train and strengthen your own strength. Also, your identity cannot be exposed now. Once it is exposed, we will have no choice but to flee. After hearing this, Jin felt a little depressed and chewed the beast meat in disappointment. He knew that Barrett was right. His identity was a taboo and could not be seen in the light of day. Only the strong have the right to autonomy. Barrett patted his shoulder and comforted him. I understand, boss. Jin nodded vigorously. Then, Barrett said to Ryan, Sister Ryan, just in case, I'll trouble you to guide him well while I'm away so that he can master the 6 styles as soon as possible. Don't worry. Barrett, I am very good at teaching people. Ryan responded with a smile, and his eyes looked bright when he looked at Jin. Sister Ryan, I'll trouble you in the future. Jin then stood up and bowed to Ryan. It's okay, it's okay. Ryan's eyes sparkled brightly. Seeing the familiar eyes, Barrett couldn't help but shrink his neck, remembering the fear of being dominated for half a year. He looked at Jin with sympathy. He could fully imagine how painful Jin would be in the days to come. Then they chatted for a while longer, and taking advantage of the night, Barrett drove the boat alone and headed for Alabasta along the route indicated by Ryan. After rowing for several hours, Barrett arrived at Alabasta at night. When the boat saw Alabasta, Barrett abandoned the boat and used the A World Away to enter Alabasta in the night. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 15 Trading. The bright moon hangs high and the night is quiet. The city of Albania seemed very quiet, as if everyone was asleep. In the dark night, Barrett, dressed in black and wearing a black mask on his face, flew at high speed in the night sky, like a black ghost, moving silently. After a while, Barrett landed outside a luxurious manor. This is Kenny's manor. Kenny is a very famous businessman in Alabasta. He is involved in a wide range of industries including arms, slaves, drugs, casinos, etc. He is a complete villain and there are countless people who want to kill him. But Kenny is not stupid. He knows that there are a lot of people who want to kill him. They have set up a lot of fog. He has houses in almost all cities in Alabasta. His whereabouts are uncertain and it is difficult to find him. In addition, Kenny was very afraid of death, and he hired many bodyguards to protect himself, many of whom were masters. Without extraordinary martial arts, it would be impossible to kill him by force. Kenny is also very smart in this regard. With his extraordinary martial arts power, he is not to be provoked at all. He gets along very well with the Navy, and often receives gifts from big pirates. He is a typical jack of all trades. It took Barrett almost 2 months to finally determine his position. Of course, Barrett's purpose was not to punish evil and promote good, but to get information about Kenny. According to his investigation, Kenny had connections with the dark world and could contact one of the kings there. This is what Barrett wants. He wants to contact more goes through Kenny. Only in this way can his script go on. Otherwise, he can only perform a one-man show in Alabasta, and it will soon be suppressed by the means of the world government. Go up and take a look first. Barrett soared into the air and walked over the manor using the moon step. The manor was brightly lit and guards were standing everywhere. It could be said that there was a sentry every 3 steps and a post every 5 steps. The guarding was very strict, but this also made him more certain that Kenny was in the manor. So scared of death. Barrett muttered something, his body moving in the air, and gently landed on a big tree outside the manor, with everything in the manor in sight. Barrett looked carefully inside the manor to determine where Kenny lived. But after half an hour of observation, Barrett found nothing. He wanted to rush out with a wave of Conqueror's hockey sweep, but when he thought of the 2 months of investigation, he decided not to alert the enemy and to be safe. Otherwise, if Kenny ran away, it would take a lot of time to find him. Soon an hour passed, and Barrett was like a crouching crocodile, waiting motionlessly and observing the manor vigilantly, hoping to find some clues. What? Suddenly, a man in a black suit walked out of a room on the left side of the manor. But the weird walking posture still made Barrett realize that this was Kenny's fatal weakness. Kenny was almost infatuated with all women and he extremely liked virgins. From the person who just came out, it was obvious that it was a woman. This was also the reason why Barrett was willing to wait. Got you. Barrett sneered and leapt to the door of Kenny's room in an instant. Before the 2 guards at the door could open their mouths, Barrett fired his finger guns with both hands at the same time, piercing their throats in an instant. As soon as the 2 fell to the ground, Barrett walked into the room, looked at the naked man on the bed and said with a cold smile, "Mr. Kenny, I've been looking for you for a long time." The man was about 50 years old, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, slightly gray hair, some wrinkles on his face, a bloated figure, and a sense of wealth all over his body. This man was Kenny, whom Barrett had been looking for 2 months. But at this time, Kenny's face had a lot more wrinkles and his expression was a little surprised. "Mr. Kenny, don't worry, I'm not here to kill you. We can have a good talk." Barrett took a chair with a smile and sat down in front of Kenny. Bang bang. At this moment, several bodyguards rushed into the room one after another, with several dark holes aimed at Barrett's back. "Mr. Kenny, are you okay?" The leading bodyguard shouted nervously. "Mr. Kenny, let them go. It's not convenient for others to know what we want to discuss." Barrett was very calm. He still sat in front of Kenny without shaking. He ignored the gun at his back, as if the gun was not pointed at him. "You guys go out first, I need to talk to this gentleman about something." Kenny saw Barrett's fearless look and realized that Barrett was no simple man. He waved at the few people and asked them to leave. "Yes, Mr. Kenny." Several people put away their guns and slowly left the room. "What's your name, sir?" Kenny asked Barrett politely as the bodyguard left. "Shanks." Barrett smiled and said, "Mr. Kenny, I won't beat around the bush. I heard that you have the contact information of the Underground King. I hope you can do me a favor. Is that okay with you?" "Yes." Kenny nodded. "I do have the contact information of the Underground King, but their asking price is not low. I dare not offend them easily. Without sufficient benefits, I would be courting death if I contact them." "Navy 6 styles, iron block." Barrett said with a smile, "And I just want you to help me get someone's contact information. After getting it, not only will you get to know another Underground King, I will also write down the complete training method of iron block for you." "Whose contact information do you want?" Kenny asked. "Morgan, I have something that will interest him very much." Barrett said with a smile. "I can ask for you, but whether it succeeds or not, you need to write down the training method of the iron block to me. After hesitating for a moment, Kenny nodded in agreement. After all, as a secret of the Navy, the 6 type was still very popular in the first half of the Grand Line. In addition, with the destruction of rocks a few years ago, the Navy's 6 type was even more famous. If you want to get it, you either join the Navy and exchange it for military merits, or meet a Navy trader and get guidance. As for wanting to get it through an auction, that is simply seeking death. Besides, the auction would not dare to auction it, and the world government would not allow it at all. Okay, you can ask someone to bring paper and pen right now, contact the person, and I'll write it. Barrett had no psychological burden at all when trading with iron blocks. In the end, the world government and the Navy would suffer the losses, and he would be the one who benefited. You'd be a fool not to take advantage of this good deal. Someone come here. Kenny heard it and immediately shouted outside. Dong dong. Soon a group of people rushed in with guns. Sir, are you going to take action? The leader pointed the gun at Barrett and spoke fiercely. Mr. Kenny, I have a bad temper. The first time was a misunderstanding. Can I regard the second time as a provocation? Barrett stood up and turned to look coldly at the bodyguard who rushed in. Boom. The domineering color is activated. A domineering aura surged out from Barrett, and the colorless energy blasted directly towards the few people. The bodyguards only held on for a moment before they all fainted on the ground. Huang, lust. Kenny behind Barrett was stunned by the scene in front of him. His fat body kept shaking and he spoke tremblingly. Mr. Kenny has good insight. Hearing Kenny's voice, Barrett stopped releasing the Conqueror's hockey and turned around to look at Kenny in surprise. He didn't expect that Kenny, who had been in the paradise for many years, would actually know the Conqueror's hockey. Call. Kenny exhaled a foul breath, looked at Barrett timidly, and said softly, Sir, you are joking. It was an accident that I knew Conqueror's hockey. But since you are the legendary king, I don't think you will default on your debt. I will help you contact him right away. I think my backer will be happy to help you. Then I'll trouble you, Mr. Kenny. Barrett sat down again and waited quietly. Kenny took out the Den Den Mushi and dialed the number directly. Soon a low voice came out from the Den Den Mushi. Kenny, do you want to trade anything with me? Dear Mr. Umit, I have a batch of arms worth about 5 million and I need your help. Kenny spoke very carefully, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that he was humble. Is it just such a small matter? On the phone, Umit's tone was a little dissatisfied, and he was obviously unhappy with Kenny's interruption. Sir Umit, you misunderstood. I wanted to say that these 500 million worth of arms are given to you, but I hope you can give me the contact information of someone. Kenny's body trembled slightly and he lowered his posture even more. Barrett saw it, but did not look down on him. The strong have their own way of living, and the weak have their own way of surviving. With Kenny's own weak strength, he was already much better than many people to have reached his current position. Chapter 16 more goes. Ha 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 ha. Why didn't you tell me earlier? If I know someone's contact information, I will tell you. Umit laughed loudly, and the sunny sky turned cloudy. Morganus. Kenny said in a low voice. I haven't heard of it. Umit muttered, well, I'll have someone check it out and give you the contact information later. Thank you, Lord Umit. I will arrange for someone to deliver the goods right away. I will trouble you to accept this kind gift when the time comes. Kenny said. I have a heart for you. Wait for my news. After hanging up the phone, Kenny put down the Den Den Mushi, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and exhaled a breath. It was obvious that he was extremely nervous. After a pause, Kenny said to Barrett, Sir, please wait a moment. You're welcome, Mr. Kenny. Please bring me some paper and pen. I'll teach you how to practice iron block. Barrett said with a smile. Thank you, sir. Kenny was excited and quickly stood up in his underwear and ran to get a pen. After a while, Kenny came back with paper and pen and handed them to Barrett. Barrett took the paper and pen and began to write carefully. He wrote in great detail, clearly stating the training steps and precautions. It took him half an hour to finish. Thank you, sir, thank you. Kenny received the practice method of the iron block as if he had found a treasure. He carefully put the paper away, put it in an iron box, and then locked it. It seems I have to use the 6 styles as little as possible. Kenny's actions made Barrett wonder. It seems that Rokushiki is not like what those fan fictions wrote, that it is nothing to just learn casually. Brew brew. Not long after, Kenny's Den Den Mushi rang. Kenny answered the Den Den Mushi and a sharp voice came from it. I'm Morgans. I heard that Mr. Kenny wants to see me for something more. Mr. Morgans, it's not convenient to talk on the phone. If it's convenient for you, you can come to Alabasta. I can assure you that this matter will definitely shock the world. As soon as Kenny opened his mouth, he was interrupted by Barrett. Who are you? What big news can shock the world? Why should I believe you? Morgan's tone was full of disdain and pride, and he was full of doubts about Barrett's words. This is about Black Wrist. If you can't come, I can only contact someone else. Barrett chuckled. He was very confident that Morgans would agree. According to the original book, Morgans is not a timid man. He has great courage and there are few things he dare not report. Otherwise, he would not have become the king of the underground and controlled the news channels in the future. Wait for me, I will reach Alabasta within 3 days. I hope you don't lie to me, otherwise the cost will be very high. On the phone, Morgans was silent for a moment, and his tone became extremely serious. Please rest assured, Mr. Morgans. I want to make friends with you. I will not lie to you for our first cooperation. I just hope that by then, you will be afraid that the matter will be too big and you will not dare to report it. Barrett chuckled and used some provocation. After all, once the affairs of Zepha's family were exposed, it might trigger a series of unknown events. Humph, there is no news that I, Morgans, dare not reveal. As expected by Barrett, given Morgan's obsession with news, he would never give up as long as it involved such big news. Then I look forward to meeting you for the first time. I'm looking forward to your big news, too. Toot. The words fell and the phone was hung up. Barrett put down the Den Den Mushi, looked at Kenny and said, Mr. Kenny, thank you for what you did today. I also have a suggestion for you. You'd better leave Alba for a while, because knowing what happens next will not do you any good. Sir, I understand. I will have someone pack up and leave immediately. This manor will be given to you. Kenny was very decisive. He gave up a manor without hesitation. In fact, from the conversation between Barrett and Morgans just now, he knew that the matter was serious and it was not something he could get involved in. Although it was painful to give up the manor, he could also break away from this matter. It could be regarded as sacrificing the car to save the driver. Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Barrett narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect Kenny to be so decisive and make a choice so quickly. He couldn't help but look up to Kenny. If Kenny was strong enough, there might be another hero on the sea. But unfortunately, what Kenny lacks is the most important strength. No, no. Kenny waved his hands and looked at Barrett wearing a mask. He felt regretful. The deal that he thought was a good deal before suddenly became a hot potato. Sir, I'll be leaving first then. Kenny asked cautiously, seeking Barrett's opinion. Mr. Kenny, do you need help? Barrett asked. No, I'm fine. Kenny waved his hands and ran out of the room. Soon, it became bustling outside. Kenny directed his men to act quickly, and in less than half an hour, the manor returned to peace. It's about to begin. I can only wish you good luck. Barrett walked out of the room, looked at the bright moon in the sky and sighed. As for the Rhine matter, he could have actually implemented his plan a long time ago, but he didn't want to miss this opportunity. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to create chaos in the world so that he could fish in troubled waters with Jin. At first, he didn't want to make such a big fuss, but ever since he saw the overwhelming bounty on King, he had an idea. He wanted to use this incident to keep the Navy and the world government busy, so as to divert their attention. However, in this way, the danger faced by Rhine and his son will no longer be a possibility, but will be certain to happen, and the uncertainties they will face will increase. This made Barrett feel extremely guilty, but he still chose Jin. After all, they were together. However, he was also refining his plan step by step, trying to reduce the danger to Rhine and the other person and increase their chances of survival. 3 days later, Kenny Manor. Barrett wore a mask and sat quietly in the manor, waiting. Call out. An albatross in a tuxedo and a top hat descended from the sky in front of Barrett. It was Morgans, one of the future underground kings. You're the one looking for me. Seeing that Barrett was wearing a mask, Morgans spoke tentatively. Nice to meet you, future news agency president. Barrett responded with a smile. Let's stop talking nonsense and talk about the big news you mentioned. Morgan's tone was indifferent, with a hint of dissatisfaction in his eyes. It was obvious that he was somewhat dissatisfied with Barrett wearing a mask. After all, as a worker who has a deep obsession with news, I want to see the truest side of everyone and everything. Hee, please follow me, sir. Barrett didn't care. He smiled and waved to Morgans, then jumped and flew to the tree where he had hidden before. Although Morgans was puzzled, he still flapped his wings and came to Barrett's side. He was about to ask questions. Barrett immediately pointed to the grove of trees in the manor and whispered, Morgans, look at that man. Is this big news? Is this General Zephyr's wife? Morgans looked in the direction of the voice, his eyes gradually changed from confusion to extreme shock, his eyes became extremely hot, and his voice began to tremble with excitement. Rhine's resurrection was big news to him. You're right, that's Rhine, Zephyr's wife. Barrett nodded with a smile. Rhine's presence in the grove was also deliberately arranged by him after he had a phone call with Morgans. This must be big news. Morgans was so excited that he immediately wanted to rush down to take pictures. However, before he could move, Barrett grabbed it. Sir, I understand your passion for your profession, but this is not the big news I'm talking about. If Rhine's identity gets out now, he will either be on the run or die. If Admiral Zephyr knew it was you, I don't think anyone with the best temper would let you go. Morgans looked at Barrett angrily and was about to ask a question when he saw Barrett opening his mouth. You're right. Once her identity is exposed, she will have no other choice except these two options. Hearing this, Morgans shuddered and quickly suppressed his excitement. Based on his understanding of the Navy and the world government, once Rhine was exposed, he would definitely be hunted down. If Zephyr experienced this again, he might go crazy. Sir, do you want to hear this news and see more things? Do you dare to do a live broadcast and break bigger news? The name can be called the darkness of the Navy. Barrett looked at Morgans with temptation in his tone. You want the Navy to kill each other? Morgans narrowed his eyes and reacted instantly. He stared at Barrett intently, his heart in turmoil. He didn't expect Barrett to be so bold. If something like this were to be broadcast live, the Navy's reputation would plummet to the bottom, triggering some unpredictable events. And there is one thing that Morgans is sure of, that is, once this matter starts, no matter what the result is, the Navy will lose a general or even gain an additional general enemy. The news is indeed big, but the risks are also huge. Chapter 17 Layout. Sir, you are indeed smart. Then, do you dare? Barrett exclaimed sincerely. He didn't expect that the bird could see so deeply and hit the nail on the head. Morgans was silent. This matter was indeed too huge for him. Let's not talk about the reputation of the Navy, let's just talk about the admirals. The admirals are the top combat power in this world. Once they lose even multiple enemies, the world government will definitely hold them accountable, and he will not be able to escape the responsibility. This news is indeed huge, but to be honest, I really don't dare. The series of consequences caused by this incident are very serious and I can't bear it. After a long while, Morgans spoke, with a hint of unwillingness and self-mockery in his eyes. Barrett was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect that Morgans didn't dare to disclose this matter. But he was soon relieved. After all, Morgans was not yet the future president of the news agency or the underground king. With his current status, he could not afford to do such a thing. Since you can't do it, as long as you promise me two things, I will allow you to spread the news that Rhine is still alive. Barrett said. What's up? Morgans asked in a deep voice. Barrett responded, First, I want you to notify two people before publishing the newspaper. Second, I need a device that can broadcast live over a large area. Which two people? Morgans asked in a muffled voice. Zephyr, Asaki. Hiss. When Morgans heard the two names Barrett said, he was confused at first, but he soon figured out some of the connections and couldn't help but take a breath. Vice Admiral Asaki was the first person to discover that Zephyr's family was attacked, the first to rush to the scene to rescue, and the first to kill the murderer. Zephyr regarded him as his benefactor. But now that Ryan is still alive, the identity of this so-called benefactor becomes questionable. You have to know that if you do this, once people know about it, you and the Navy will become mortal enemies. Once they catch you, you will definitely be executed. Won't you regret it? Morgans was terrified when he thought about it. This was a rhythm to expose the ugliness of the Navy and cause chaos in the Navy. His voice couldn't help but tremble. Ha 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 ha, Barrett laughed. A real man wouldn't look back and forth. The only thing he can do is die. Overlord color. Feeling the aura that Barrett inadvertently revealed, Barrett also knew that the man in front of him was a king of the sea. Coupled with his heroism and wisdom as deep as the sea, as long as he did not die young, his name would surely resound throughout the world in the future on the sea. Although it is dangerous to cooperate with such people, there will definitely be big news in the future, and it may even provide an extra layer of protection. I promise you, I will get the equipment within 2 days, but this equipment is limited and can only be used for live broadcasts in certain areas. Morgans thought over and over again, and within a few moments he decided to invest in advance. Moreover, although he could not report such big news himself, he also wanted to follow suit and see how big a sensation it could cause. No problem. Barrett nodded and didn't ask for too much. After all, given the current situation, being able to do this was already good enough. This is an anti-tapping Den Den Mushi. When you are ready, please notify me at any time. I will contact Asaki and Zephyr for you. As he spoke, Morgans took out another white Den Den Mushi and handed it to Barrett. Happy cooperation. Barrett took the Den Den Mushi, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised under the mask, with a hint of anticipation. 5 days later, in the evening, Marineford. Rhine, Luke. Zephyr sat alone on the bed, looking at the photos of his wife and children with tears on his face. Brew brew. Suddenly, his exclusive Den Den Mushi rang. Who is it so late? Zephyr carefully put the photo into his arms and answered the call. Moses, I'm Zephyr. Hee, hello, General Zephyr. A strange laugh came from the phone. Who are you? Just tell me what you want to say. Zephyr responded in a deep voice. It's not good for General Zephyr to be so irritable. I have a piece of news that may interest you. Don't look for me regarding pirate matters. I've already retreated to the second line. Zephyr growled in annoyance and was about to hang up the phone. General Zephyr, if you don't want to know about Rhine's news, then hang up. Hearing that Zephyr was about to hang up, the voice on the phone became urgent. What? How do you know Rhine? Zephyr sat up straight in an instant, his tiger eyes turned red, and a powerful aura burst out from his body, and all the tables and chairs in the room were blown away. I have met Ms. Rhine in Alabasta. She also told me your contact information. But I don't know why she didn't take the initiative to contact you, but asked me to do so. How is it possible? I saw their bodies with my own eyes. Zephyr whispered in despair, tears falling from the corners of his eyes. If you don't see it with your own eyes, how can you know whether it's true or not? The voice in the Den Den Mushi continued, and Ms. Rhine asked me to tell you not to tell anyone except you. She doesn't trust anyone in the Navy. You mean? Zephyr's eyes narrowed, his pupils shrank sharply, and his eyes kept flickering. I didn't say anything. I can only tell you that if you go too late, it might really be a farewell between life and death. Toot. After saying this, the phone was hung up. Zephyr held the Den Den Mushi tightly, his face became extremely gloomy. Although he was straightforward, he was not a fool. After all, a fool could not be a general. It's just that he has always been immersed in the sorrow of the tragic death of his wife and children, and has never stopped to think about it in detail. Now that it has been exposed, many links have been figured out and there are many loopholes. For example, why would he, a general whose family lived in Marineford, be killed? Why am I the last one to know after something happens? And why, by the time he found out, all the pirates who attacked his family had been executed? Huff, huff. Zephyr gasped for air, his eyes turned red, and he growled, I don't know, and you don't know either. With that, Zephyr quickly stood up and strode towards the port of Marineford. After a while of consideration, he sorted out his thoughts and began to believe the unfamiliar phone call to some extent. About an hour and a half after Zephyr left, at the port of Marineford, another warship followed him towards the sea under the moonlight. At the same time, Marineford headquarters, Warring States office. Zhongguo put down the Den Den Mushi with a complicated expression. His face was happy at one moment and gloomy at the next, which looked extremely strange. Sengoku put down the Den Den Mushi, thought for a long time, and then took out the exclusive anti-air den den mushi. Brew brew. Moshi moshi, is there something important, Sengoku? The hollow voice of the den den mushi was a little lazy, obviously having just been woken up. Brother Kong, I'm sorry, but I have something very important to tell you. Zhongguo apologized. Rhine is still alive. Who is Rhine? Kong was a little confused, but soon reacted and exclaimed, you mean Rhine is still alive? Yes, I just got the news. Is the news accurate? Sora was no longer sleepy, and his voice became low and serious. It was reported by the news agency. According to the person who spread the news agency has already started printing newspapers. They will be sent to the whole world tomorrow, or even tonight. Zhongguo said seriously. So what we saw was all fake. Kong growled. Since Rhine is still alive, why doesn't she return to the headquarters? Doesn't she trust us? Perhaps Rhine has some difficulties. Zhongguo responded in a deep voice, with a hint of sadness in his eyes. Huff, huff. Hearing Zhongguo's words, the person on the phone gasped heavily and his breathing was extremely disordered. Zhongguo, what do you think we should do? After a long time, Sora's phone call came from the phone again. I think we should tell Zephyr now and take Rhine back with her. We should also inform the higher-ups. If we touch Rhine again, the Navy will launch the most violent resistance. Then we may have some room for negotiation with Zephyr. After thinking for a while, Zhongguo analyzed, after all, we have already hurt him once. Kong remained silent upon hearing this, and said nothing. Zhongguo did not interrupt him either, and the atmosphere became silent for a moment. General Sengoku, General Zephyr left over an hour ago, and Vice Admiral Asaki sailed out 10 minutes ago. However, just then, a naval officer walked into the office to report to Zhongguo. Bang! Zhongguo slammed the table, stood up excitedly and shouted, What, you mean Zephyr and Asaki have already gone out to sea? The naval officer was startled. Before he could speak, an angry roar came from the den den mushi on Sengoku's desk. Sengoku, you bastard, hurry up and follow him, otherwise it will be too late. I understand, Brother Kong. Zhongguo responded hastily, and then yelled at the naval officer, What are you still standing there for? Go prepare the ship. Oh. The naval officer was so frightened that he trembled and hurried out of the headquarters office. Zhongguo followed closely behind him, throwing his cloak. Chapter 18 Layout. The next day, early morning. Countless newspaper delivery seagulls flew to all parts of the world, and the calm sea was broken by a piece of news. New world, unknown waters. A giant pirate ship with a fluttering bearded skull is sailing in unknown waters. At the bow of the pirate ship, a man with a long sword on his waist, a red-brimmed straw hat on his head, and nose hair like a beard was staring ahead seriously. This person was the future pirate king, Roger. Next to Roger was a handsome blonde man wearing glasses. He also had a long knife on his waist and a wine gourd in his hand. He looked free and easy, and very comfortable. This person was none other than the pirate king's right-hand man, Pluto Silverbaz Rayleigh. Rayleigh, it seems that some of the ambitious people in the world can no longer sit still. Roger's voice was low and he sounded extremely serious. Hey, Captain Roger, they have their own way, and we have our own choices. Besides, it's a blow to the Navy, shouldn't we be happy? Rayleigh took a sip of his wine, a charming smile on his face, not caring at all. Ha ha ha, I forgot I'm a pirate. Roger was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter, snatched Rayleigh's wine gourd and took a big gulp of the wine. Drink it all, you bastard. Rayleigh snatched back his wine gourd, took 2 gulps, and found that there was not a drop of wine left. He glared at Roger angrily. Ha ha ha, don't be so stingy. Roger laughed wantonly, with a nonchalant look on his face. Then he hugged Rayleigh and said gloatingly, Now that you've told this, does that bastard Garp still have the mood to chase us? It shouldn't be. Rayleigh touched his chin with a little emotion on his face. That bastard should go directly to Alabasta, after all, that's Zephyr. Yes. There is one less powerful rival on the sea. Roger raised his eyes and stared ahead, an inexplicable light flashing in his deep eyes. At the same time, far-sighted strong men such as Golden Lion and Whitebeard in the New World expressed the same sentiment for Zephyr, who was about to retire. A few smart people also smelled a conspiracy, so they hid themselves and sent people to Alabasta to investigate. Dash. At the same time, Naval Headquarters, Marshal's office. At this time, the room was brightly lit, and soft sunlight shone into the office through the window, illuminating the two figures in the room. Sitting on the main seat was a middle-aged man with a broad chest and bronze skin. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and his erect hair stuck on his head like steel needles. He had a mountain-shaped beard, a black suit and a navy cloak of justice. He looked intimidating without even showing any anger. This person is none other than the Admiral of the Navy, Kong Gang. Opposite to Sora sat a beautiful lady, who was none other than the Navy's Chief of Staff, Vice Admiral Suru. Vice Admiral Suru now looks to be about 30 years old, with skin as white as cream, almond eyes and a beautiful nose. His curvy figure is revealed under his white shirt. With the Navy's cloak of justice, he looks heroic and gives off a unique charm. However, at this time, the two senior Navy officials had gloomy and extremely unhappy faces, and it was obvious that they were in a very bad mood. Colonel He, tell me what we should do now. It was Kong who spoke first. After Sengoku left, he contacted the Naval Chief of Staff Suru early in the morning and told him everything in detail. He also told He everything that he and Sengoku had investigated after the accident with Zepha's family. Lieutenant General He was stunned when she heard it. Although she had some guesses about the murder of Ryan and her son, she was stopped before she could investigate. She didn't expect that there were so many things behind it. Marshal Kong, there is no way to deal with this matter. It is more realistic for us to find a way to deal with the aftermath. Otherwise, once this matter is exposed, the reputation of the Navy will fall to the bottom, making everyone in the Navy's military academies feel insecure, and the general public will also lose trust in the Navy. Vice Admiral Suru made a quick analysis. She was very clear-headed and did not think about winning back Zepha because she knew that from the moment Zepha left alone, the Navy had already lost this admiral. What the Navy needs to do now is not to win back Zepha, but to save its reputation. You're right. The most important thing now is the Navy's reputation. Kong reacted immediately after hearing what was said and broke out in a cold sweat. Once Zepha's affairs were exposed, everyone in the Navy would be in danger and chaos would break out. If things continue like this, no one will dare to join the Navy. Not only will they have to face the revenge of pirates, but they will also have to guard against people stabbing them in the back. Who can stand that? Colonel He, what should we do now? Kong continued to ask. Marshal Kong, we can only bring this to light, admit our mistakes, and execute the people who were involved in the incident live, so that everyone knows that there are termites in our Navy, but we will never tolerate them. We can also take this opportunity to clean up the Navy on a large scale. After all, there are too many mixed people in the Navy now. His eyes sparkled, full of wisdom, and there was also a hint of ruthlessness on his pretty face. Colonel Crane, this will seriously damage the Navy. Kong frowned and said, and the people above us won't allow us to do this. No, Marshal Kong, you are wrong. He shook his head and said, as long as we control the force, the world government will agree to this matter, and they must agree. Because the Navy is the face of the world government. Once the face is damaged and the prestige is lost, the pirates will riot. The Navy, whose reputation has fallen to the bottom, will have no way to suppress them. The world will be in chaos and the world government will be threatened. Although we will be much weaker for a while, at least we can restore our reputation. In the future, the Navy will have more people and our strength will become stronger and stronger. Wait here for me. I need to ask the 5 elders. After thinking for a moment, Kong walked out of the office with the Den Den Mushi. Sister Lai Yin, this is the only way I can help you. Crane looked out the window, a trace of memories on his face as he murmured softly. A quarter of an hour later, Kong returned to the office with a serious face and said to He, Staff Officer He, the higher-ups have agreed. You are right. There are indeed too many corrupt officials in the Navy. I will leave this matter to you. In addition, please inform Sengoku and Garp to capture Asaki with all their strength and try to eliminate this matter in the cradle. Yes, Marshal. He nodded in agreement. Then he asked, Marshal Kong, what about Zepha and Rhine? Kong was silent after hearing this. His tone was heavy and low, and he said in a hoarse voice, Zeph, Rhine, CP0 will handle it. His pupils shrank sharply. She didn't expect the world government to be so cruel as to issue a kill order. But she quickly came to her senses and said, Marshal Kong, Zepha and Rhine must not be touched. Don't you think there is a hand behind this, silently pushing it forward? Once Zephyr and Rhine are touched, we will fall into a real trap. Moreover, do you think CP0 alone can stop Zephyr? If we fail to stop him and let Zephyr escape, then we will be faced with a Zephyr who hates the Navy to the core. How should we deal with that? Yes, Chief of Staff Suru, you are right. Even if we cannot let Zephyr return to the Navy, we must not force him to the opposite side. As soon as Kong heard his analysis, he immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Zephyr is now in his prime and he knows very well how terrifying his strength is. If they fail to encircle and kill him, then facing a crazy admiral who is eager for revenge, the Navy will suffer completely unpredictable losses. Suru, you go inform Garp and Sengoku first. I will contact the 5 elders immediately to stop them from attacking Zephyr. Kong figured out the whole thing and immediately gave orders to Suru. Yes, he saluted and quickly left the marshal's office. After he left, Kong immediately took out the Den Den Mushi and started communicating with the 5 elders. After Kong's analysis, the 5 elders passed a resolution to cancel the kill order against Zephyr. At this time, Zephyr, who was sailing at high speed on the sea, and Rhine, who was lurking in Alabasta, did not know that their good friend Crane had eliminated a disaster for the couple at the headquarters. At the same time, some of Barrett's plans were aborted. 3 days later. At the port of Albana, a warship slowly approached the shore. Look, why there are naval ships. Yeah. Why would the Navy come to Albana? Did a big pirate appear in Albana? At the port of Albana, almost everyone stopped what they were doing and discussed the situation while watching the warship slowly approaching the shore. Look, it's Zephyr the Black Arm. At this moment, a middle-aged man in the port pointed at the bow of the warship and spoke. Everyone looked towards the warship. On the warship, a middle-aged man with purple hair stood at the bow. He was wearing a navy coat and had a resolute face, which made people feel extremely majestic. This man was the Admiral of the Navy, Black Arm Zephyr. Chapter 19. The show begins. Fuck, why is the general here? Hurry up, or we'll have to stay and impel down if Zephyr catches us. Brother, after Zephyr's wife died, he also killed pirates. Fuck, why didn't you tell me earlier and run away? Zephyr's arrival caused a panic in the port, and countless little pirates quietly left the port. Sister Rhine, now is not the time. In a corner not far from the port, Barrett grabbed the excited Rhine and shook his head gently. Wow, but I really miss him. Rhine stopped and looked at Zephyr, who jumped off the boat and looked around, tears in his eyes. Sister Rhine, please wait a little longer. You will see him soon. If you go out now, Admiral Zephyr will not quit the Navy and will bring you back to the Navy. Then what happened to you last time will happen again. Are you sure you can live with Luke again? Barrett's words were like a heavy hammer, hitting Rhine's soft spot. He was lucky to have met Barrett last time, but what about the next time? What about the next time? Rhine slowly stopped crying, looked at Barrett, and said softly, Barrett, Zephyr is here now, let Jin bring Luke over. You can start your plan now. Hey, Sister Rhine, are you sure you want to take Luke with you? Barrett sighed softly, he saw the changes in Rhine. Rhine had been with him all this time, and he also told Rhine about his plan to make Rhine appear deliberately. Although he tried his best to conceal it, Rhine still noticed it, and his attitude towards him changed drastically, and he no longer trusted him as much as before. Take me with you. We are one family and cannot be separated. Rhine's tone was flat, and her words showed endless wariness towards Barrett. After going through so much, she had learned to think. During the time she followed Barrett, she also realized that Barrett was using her. This made her very uncomfortable. Later, she found that Barrett would always call her secretly. Although she didn't know the content, as time passed, she could feel a sense of oppression that a storm was about to come. This made her completely distrust Barrett, and naturally she was unwilling to hand Luke over to him. After a few days, she regretted more than once why she asked Barrett for help to let Zephyr leave the Navy. But once the arrow is shot, there is no turning back. Luke and Jin have always been together, and there is no way back for her to regret now. Okay, I'll inform Jin right away. Barrett didn't say much, just nodded slightly, took out his Den Den Mushi to contact Jin, and asked Jin to bring Luke over. After he finished practicing, he could clearly feel that Rhine beside him breathed a sigh of relief. Hey. Sensing Ryan's condition, Barrett sighed secretly. He knew that after this incident, even if Ryan didn't die, he would never have any contact with him again. It was a pity for such a famous teacher. After all, once people lose trust and become defensive, it becomes almost impossible to reconnect. About half an hour later, Jin brought Luke to find Barrett and the other man. Just as Luke was about to pounce on Barrett, he was caught by Ryan, who pulled him to a distance of about 10 meters behind Barrett and looked at him vigilantly. Jin was dressed in black and had a black mask on his face, leaving only a pair of eyes exposed. This was specially made for him by Barrett to conceal his identity as a Lunalia. But from his remaining eyes, Barrett still saw his doubts, patted his shoulder gently, and said in a low voice, "She is not the same as us." "Then just ignore her," Jin asked with a frown. "You take action." Barrett looked at Jin and raised his eyebrows. "I can't. Ryan is my teacher anyway." Jin smiled bitterly and shook his head. Although Ryan was not the same kind of person as them, he was still very grateful for his sincere teaching during this period. It was obviously impossible for him to kill Ryan. "Then what are you talking about? She is also my teacher." Barrett glared at Jin unhappily. Although he had thought about killing him, as a modern man, he still couldn't do such a thing as killing his master. "Or, just knock him out and kidnap him," Jin suggested. "You're dreaming. I've been planning this for so long, and you want me to give up now? Aren't you afraid that you'll feel unhappy?" Barrett looked at Jin with amusement. The plan was changed just for him, and now he actually wanted to knock Ryan out and take him away. "Then don't care. Never mind." Barrett waved his hand, looked at Ryan not far away, and sighed. Given Ryan's personality, even if she gives up this time, there will be trouble in the future. It is better to take advantage of this chance to survive and let her be noticed. As long as the mother and son can survive this time, there will be less calculations. "You go to the boat and wait for me. Once this is over, I will meet you immediately and we will go to the new world as soon as possible." Jin nodded with a complicated expression, bowed deeply to Ryan, and then left. Not long after, another warship approached the port of Albania. Looking at the approaching warship, Barrett's mouth curled up slightly, and he turned back to Ryan and said with a smile, "Sister Ryan, it seems that the Navy attaches great importance to you. Another warship has arrived." Ryan, who was talking to Luke with his head down, was stunned for a moment, then looked up at the warship that had already docked. Looking at the people coming down from the warship, he couldn't help but cover his mouth and exclaimed softly, "Why is he here?" Looking at Asaki getting off the boat, Ryan's face was full of confusion. She knew Asaki. It was written in the newspaper that after she and Luke got into trouble, the first person to rescue him was Asaki. Seeing that Ryan was still confused, Barrett said in a deep voice, "Sister Ryan, I'm giving you a piece of advice. If nothing unexpected happens, this person is here to kill you. You'd better be alert." Ah. Hearing this, Ryan couldn't help but reveal a trace of sadness on her face and nodded heavily. She knew that Barrett had no need to lie to her now. Then she asked Barrett, "So are we going there now?" Barrett shook his head, picked up the white Den Den Mushi, walked to the other end and dialed Morgan's number. Soon, the call was connected, and Barrett asked, "How long will it take for General Zephyr to arrive at the port?" "Ha ha ha, has it started yet?" Morgans laughed on the phone. "It will take General Zephyr 20 minutes to arrive at the port." "Okay, we have 5 minutes left to start planning," Barrett said with a smile. "Ha ha 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 ha, this is truly unprecedented big news." Morgans laughed and said with some regret, "It's a pity that I can't participate in it in person." "Aren't you participating?" Barrett responded with a smile. "Yes, I'll prepare. Such an exciting thing must be known to others." Morgan said this and hung up the Den Den Mushi. Barrett also took out his pocket watch and checked the time. Then he walked back to Ryan and bowed deeply. "Sister Ryan, I'm very sorry. I did use you this time. But please believe that I never intended to harm you. So please trust me for the last time. I will do my best to protect the lives of you and your son." Ryan pursed his lips and nodded. 15 minutes passed in a flash. Barrett raised his head, looked directly at Ryan, and asked seriously, "Sister Ryan, are you sure you want to take Luke with you?" Ryan was silent, but Luke, who was like a little adult, said, "Brother Barrett, you don't have to say anything. I want to be with my mother." After Luke finished speaking, he pulled Ryan with his little hand and prepared to move forward. Barrett, thank you for saving us twice anyway. But after this time, we are even now. Ryan picked up Luke, took off his hat and mask, bowed slightly to Barrett, then turned and walked forward. Hey! Life and death are determined by fate, wealth and honor are determined by God. Sister Ryan and Luke wish you good luck. Barrett looked at Ryan, who slowly appeared in front of him, and sighed softly. Isn't this the woman Vice Admiral Asaki is looking for? Go and report to the Admiral. Quote. As soon as Ryan appeared holding Luke, he immediately attracted the attention of the Navy, who were asking around, and they all ran towards their superiors. At the same time, the situation at the port of Albania appeared on screens in most parts of the world. What's going on? Why did this scene suddenly appear? Where is this? Who is that woman? Quote. Countless people gathered together to watch the live broadcast, and Ryan became the most eye-catching person. Call out. Suddenly, two huge sword energies slashed towards Ryan. Boom. Ryan held Luke and dodged the sword energy, which directly hit the city wall behind Ryan, causing a huge roar. Then, Asaki leapt in front of Ryan at an incredible speed, and shouted cruelly, "This woman is the most evil criminal, kill her without mercy." Bang bang. As soon as the words fell, countless Navy men raised their rifles and opened fire, with countless bullets flying. Ryan could only hold Luke and dodge using shaving and paper painting. Chapter 20 The End. That's Admiral Zephyr's wife. At this moment, Barrett shouted loudly from the crowd, and his voice instantly spread throughout the port. How can this be? The Navy actually attacked the family of its own admiral. Can such a Navy talk about justice? Quote. Hearing the shouting, countless soldiers and civilians were stunned, with a look of disbelief on their faces. Malinfando, Navy headquarters. This is fake. How dare Lieutenant General Asaki? Go find the marshal. We want justice. Go. Quote. Countless sailors watched the video in the square with disbelief on their faces. Countless sailors fell into doubts and their inner faith collapsed. They actually attacked the family members of their companions. Who would dare to join such a navy? Countless naval soldiers and some general officers ran directly to the marshal's office. They wanted to know the truth and seek justice. Some Navy officers took advantage of the chaos to leave with their families. The same thing happened again and again in all major branches of the Navy. Some officers left with their soldiers, while others suppressed the protest forcefully. In short, the faith in the Navy collapsed, and countless sailors left, either secluded themselves in the countryside or turned against the Navy and became pirates. The leaders of the Navy and the world government were all extremely anxious, trying to cut off the live broadcast line in a panic. A large number of pirates burst into great enthusiasm, cheered, and started celebrating. Countless people rushed to spread the news, and the Navy's reputation fell to the bottom at this moment. Meanwhile, Albania. Barrett's shout gave Ryan a chance to breathe, and he hugged Luke and greedily swallowed the air. Countless soldiers looked at Asaki in unison. Asaki held the knife in both hands, with a violent aura rising from his body. His wolf eyes swept around wantonly, looking for Barrett's trace. Barrett was not stupid either. After shouting, he used the shaving skill to leave at high speed without staying there at all. Not finding anyone, Asaki was filled with anger, glaring at the soldiers looking at him and yelling, "What are you looking at? This woman is a criminal, and that person is talking nonsense. General Zephyr's wife died a long time ago. Hurry and do it. Lieutenant General Asaki, why don't you notify General Zephyr to confirm and then arrest him? Yeah, it's not too late to wait for confirmation." Quote. A group of sailors put down their guns and dared not take action, and tried to persuade them. Humph. Asaki glared at his subordinates fiercely, but he didn't dare to continue taking action under the watchful eyes of everyone. He just looked at Ryan coldly and deliberately took out the Den Mushi. Seeing that Asaki's troops were not taking any action, Ryan felt a little weak in his tense body and breathed a sigh of relief. You could have lived, why did you have to come back? But just as she relaxed, a figure quickly appeared beside her, and the cold voice was like a death warrant from the King of Hell. Poof! The long knife pierced through Ryan's body, and at the same time Luke's body was also directly pierced through. What? Asaki. Zephyr, who had just arrived, saw this scene, his eyes were bloodshot and he roared violently. Bang! Zephyr kicked hard, creating a deep pit on the ground. He turned into a flash of lightning, and his right fist turned pure black. Boom. Zephyr was furious and didn't hold back at all. He unleashed all his might as an admiral and punched Asaki hard on the head. What? Asaki was directly knocked hundreds of meters away. Immediately afterwards, Zephyr turned into a residual image again, pressed Asaki's head, and pressed it directly into the ground with a bang, and everything within a radius of 100 meters collapsed. Bang bang. His wife and children were killed again. Zephyr was completely transformed into a demon. He punched Asaki one after another. Albana was like an earthquake, with a rumbling sound. Ah! Asaki was severely injured by the punch and was unable to resist at all. He could only whine in pain. Being a step late, Zephyr went completely crazy. Tears and blood flowed from his eyes. He used all his strength in every punch. Soon, the place where he was turned into a huge deep pit. General Zephyr won't kill us. This is horrific. Will this island sink? Quote. The soldier who had just taken action was so scared that he collapsed to the ground, and the timid ones were so scared that they wet their pants. You bunch of idiots, the person is not dead yet, why don't you go call a doctor? Just then, Barrett, wearing a mask, shouted at the crowd. Ah! The general's wife is not dead. Go and call a doctor. I'll go. I'm going to get the medicine. Quote. The people who were frightened just now suddenly revived and were busy looking for doctors and getting medicine. Sister Rhine, I wish you good luck. Barrett glanced at the Rhine mother and son who were being treated, and no longer paid any attention to them. He took advantage of the crowd to secretly leave, boarded the ship that had been prepared long ago, and sailed towards the New World with Jin. At the same time, all live video broadcasts were shut down, but whether it was Asaki attacking and killing the Navy's family members, or Zephyr going crazy and killing Asaki later, the fighting power he showed was shocking. However, Barrett achieved his goal, and the reputation of the Navy plummeted. After this incident, Zephyr would no longer be able to stay in the Navy, and the Navy and the world government would be extremely busy. Not long after Barrett left, Zhongguo rushed to Albana. Seeing Zephyr sitting in a deep pit covered in blood and a pile of minced meat beside him, he was shocked. He had never seen Zephyr like this before, and it was also the first time he saw Zephyr so bloody. Zeph, are you okay? Zhongguo asked worriedly. Zephyr ignored Zhongguo at all. His eyes were empty, as if he had lost his soul. He just sat on the minced meat in a daze. Looking at Zephyr's appearance, a trace of self-blame flashed across Zhongguo's eyes. If only he could be faster. General Zephyr, my wife is not dead. Just then, a Navy soldier ran to the edge of the deep pit and shouted loudly. When Zephyr heard the voice, he came back to his senses. He jumped out of the huge pit with a bang, and looked directly at the soldier who reported the news. He said tremblingly, you just said, the lady is not dead. The soldier was so frightened by Zephyr that he sat on the ground, his teeth chattering and unable to speak. Zephyr, calm down. Seeing this, Zhongguo hurriedly walked to Zephyr, patted his shoulder, then squatted down and gently asked the soldier, Corporal, you just said that Rhine is not dead, right? My wife and the child are alive. They were saved by everyone. The soldier took a breath and nodded heavily. Woohoo! Upon hearing that Rhine and his son were not dead, Zephyr seemed to have been drained of all his energy. His tiger eyes were filled with tears and he kept crying with his head down. The man did not shed tears, but he did not go to the sad place. Warring states on the side breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Rhine and his son were not dead, with Zephyr's character, he would never be forced to the opposite side of the Navy. This could be considered a blessing in disguise. Zephyr, let's go see Rhine and Luke. Zhongguo patted the crying Zephyr and reached out to pull him up. Zephyr said nothing, got up and walked towards Rhine mother and son, and Zhongguo followed closely with a wry smile. When a group of Navy men saw Zephyr coming over covered in blood and flesh, they all became silent and retreated far away. Obviously, Zephyr's brutality just now has been deeply imprinted in these people's minds. Thank you for saving my wife and children. Unexpectedly, Zephyr stopped and bowed deeply to everyone, contrary to his previous brutality. Ah, you are too polite, General Zephyr. This is what we should do. Yes, General, you don't have to be polite with us. Quote. Everyone was stunned for a moment. They didn't expect Zephyr to thank them. Smiles appeared on their faces and they started talking at once. Zhang Guo, who was standing by, smiled knowingly when he saw this scene and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Unlike Albana's happy situation, Barrett was in a state of confusion at this moment because he had met the most stupid person in the Navy hero Garp. At this time, Garp was still in his prime, with a head full of black hair. He looked very young, and his strength was the ceiling of the ceiling. But precisely because of his great strength, he acts arbitrarily. Boy, take off your masks and let me see if you are a pirate. If not, I will let you go. For example, now, Garp is holding his nose with one hand and throwing a giant bomb with the other hand, looking at Barrett and Jin with extreme arrogance. Barrett was speechless. He didn't expect to meet Garp here and be threatened. It was really unlucky. Uncle, we are not pirates. If pirates meet you, they will definitely run away. Barrett complimented. Ahahaha, you are telling the truth. Garp laughed narcissistically, picked out a piece of booger casually, flicked his finger, and with a ding, it bounced directly onto Barrett's mask. Seeing this, Jin glared at Garp angrily and wanted to step forward and attack him. Uncle, you're going too far. Barrett stopped Jin, suppressed the anger in his heart, and looked at Garp calmly. Ahahaha, sorry. Garp wiped it casually on his clothes and seemed to be apologizing, but his attitude did not show any sign of apology at all. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.